Good afternoon. Welcome to today's proceedings of the Senate on this 25th day of July, 2024. This broadcast is brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in conjunction with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. The broadcast is available on KBC Channel 1, on Senate TV, as well as YouTube, courtesy of the Parliament of Kenya YouTube channel. My name is Edward Kabasa. We'll take a look at the order of business this afternoon, where the Senate Majority Leader will lay on the table of the Senate a paper on the annual report for the financial year 2022-2023 from the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. The nominated Senator, Miraj Abdullahi, will make a statement regarding the International Convention on Training, Certification and Watchkeeping for Seafarers. And pursuant to the Standing Order 53, subsection 1, the request for statements, the Senator for Mombasa County, Senator Mwinyi Haji Mohamed Faki, will seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources regarding the ownership of freehold land by non-citizens of the Republic of Kenya. The Senator for Mombasa will also seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Labour and Social Welfare regarding the status of the Human Resource Department of the County Government of Mombasa. The Senator for Bomet County, Senator Hilary Sigei, will seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Roads and Transportation regarding stalled and or abandoned infrastructure projects in Bomet County. The Senator for Kisii County, Senator Richard Onyonka, will seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing regarding the leasing of the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport under the build, operate and transfer model of public-private partnership to a private company. Those are statements which will be sought courtesy of the Standing Order 53, Part 1. Resumption of debate which was interrupted on 28th of May 2024 on the Houses of Parliament Bicameral Relations Bill, National Assembly Bill number 44 of 2023. That debate is for the second reading, and also in the order of business this afternoon is resumption of debate on the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 40 of 2023. This bill is courtesy of Senator Hamida Ali Kibwana. The Street Vendors Protection of Livelihood Bill, Senate Bills number 41 of 2023, will also be debated this afternoon, and the Laws of Succession Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number the Laws of Succession Amendment Bill. This is a Senate bill as well. Debate on this bill will also resume. This bill is courtesy of Senator Veronica Maina. Other bills which have been lined up for debate for the second reading, these bills debated already began and they were interrupted on various dates. The Public Transport Motorcycle Regulation Bill, Senate Bills number 38 of 2023, will be debated for the second reading. The Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill number 2 Bill, Senate Bills number 52 of 2023, will also be debated. And finally, the Fire and Rescue Services Professionals Bill, Senate Bills number 55 of 2023, will also be debated for the second reading. This bill is courtesy of Senator Mohammed Abbas Sheikh. In the order of business this afternoon are motions as well. One by the Chairperson, Select Committee on Delegated Legislation. The motion is on the report of the Select Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the Social Health Insurance General Regulations 2024 and the Social Health Insurance Tribunal Procedure Rules of 2024. Debate on this motion had already begun, and in the order of business this afternoon, should the members or the senators dispense of the business that precedes this particular one, then a debate will resume on the motion by the Committee on Delegated Legislation. Other motions which are in the order of business this afternoon include one by the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget. It's on the report of the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the status of implementation of projects funded by the conditional grant for the construction of county headquarters. The other motion is by the Chairperson Standing Committee on Health, the report of the Standing Committee on Health on the inquiry into the alleged irregularities in the procurement of long-lasting insecticide-treated nets at the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority. Those motions are in the order of business this afternoon, and this one, the resumption of debate will take place, and thereafter a question will be put. And just to mention that these bills which will be debated for the second reading this afternoon, they will be followed by division, where the senators will be voting on whether or not the bills should proceed to the next stage of business in the Senate. The Local Content Bill, Senate Bills number 50 of 2023, has also been lined up for debate. This one is also in the second reading stage. The last time this bill was debated was the 24th of July during the afternoon sitting. As well, there are a number of bills which are scheduled for debate for the second reading, such as the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Control Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 1 of 2024. This bill is courtesy of Senator Kathuri Murungi. And the Land Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 40 of 2022. This bill arrived from the National Assembly, and now it's before the Senate for concurrence. The County Oversight and Accountability Bill, Senate Bills number 3 of 2024, has also been lined up for debate. This bill is courtesy of the Senator for Narok County, Senator Ledamo Lekina, and Senator William Kisang. The County Civic Education Bill, Senate Bills number 4 of 2024 by Senator Esther Okenyuri, has also been lined up for debate. There are also other bills that have been lined up for debate for the second reading. Among them, the County Statistics Bill, Senate Bills number 5 of 2024 by Senator Ali Ibrahim Roba, the Statutory Instruments Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 10 of 2024 by the Senate Majority Leader, the Intergovernmental Relations Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 12 of 2024 by the Senate Majority Leader, and finally the County Assembly's Pension Scheme Bill, Senate Bills number 14 of 2024, has also been lined up for debate for the second reading. The Chairperson, Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources, will also move a motion, and that motion is on the report of the Committee on a petition to the Senate. The Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Amason Jeffwa Kingi, has walked into the chambers. Now, let me hand you over for this live broadcast of the Senate. My name is Edward Kabasa. Enjoy your viewing.
Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu, tukusihi ututazame kwa neema nyingi na baraka. Sisi watumishi wako ambao umeridhika kutuita kwa nyadhifa za uongozi katika jamhuri hii yetu. Tukuomba utuwajalie tuyatende na kufikia mambo yote atakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen. Clerk, do we have quorum? Sergeant at Arms, kindly ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes.
If you're just joining us, these are live pictures from the Senate chambers where the Speaker has ordered the quorum bell to be rung for 10 minutes for the Senate to quorate. There is not enough numbers for business of the Senate to begin this afternoon, and as we wait for the quorum to be achieved, we'll continue looking at the order of business this afternoon. There will be resumption of debate on a motion by the Senator Professor Margaret Kamar. The motion is on the report of the 66th Commonwealth Parliamentary Conference held in Accra, Ghana from the 30th of September to 6th of October 2023. There are motions which have not been debated, but they have been lined up for debate in the order of business this afternoon. Among them, the report of the Select Committee on
of oath. Order number 2, communication from the Chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Senate Majority Leader.
The 2024. This is the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution Annual Report for the financial year 2022-2023. I thank you.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
Statement pursuant to Standing Order 52-1. Senator Miraj Abdullahi. That statement is dropped. Request for statements pursuant to Standing Order 53-1. Senator Munyahaji Muhammad Faki.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Lands, Environment and Natural Resources regarding the ownership of freehold land by non-citizens in the Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, the immediate former Cabinet Secretary for Lands, Housing and Urban Development recently issued a statement in which she stated that foreign residents were not allowed to own freehold land in Kenya. This statement has caused panic, fear and despondency not only to the foreign residents who have invested in Kenya, but also to Kenya citizens, especially in Mombasa and the coast region, where there are a lot of foreigners who own land and businesses. Mr. Speaker, sir, Article 65(1) of the Constitution provides that a person who is not a citizen may hold land on the basis of leasehold tenure and only, and any such lease, however granted, shall not exceed 99 years. However, the land registrars are refusing to deal with land transactions, leading to confusion among members of the public. In the statement, the committee should, one, outline measures the government has put in place to convert the freehold land owned by non-citizens to leaseholds. And number two, explain the legal framework that the government has proposed to cater for the freehold lands that will be converted into leaseholds. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Labour and Social Welfare concerning the status of the Human Resource Department of the County Government of Mombasa.
Order, honourable senators. May the senator for Mombasa be heard in silence, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, the County of Mombasa has, since the inception of devolution, attracted adverse reports from the Auditor General on matters human resources. Currently, the recurrent expenditure on human resources is about 48% of the total budget of the county. This is contrary to the provisions of the Public Finance Management Act. In the statement, the committee should highlight, one, state the reasons behind the county government of Mombasa's failure to implement its own...
What is the point of order, Senator?
I'm wondering, the system is, I don't know even whether Hansard is also working or not. But that's what I was raising, sir.
Clerk, can you confirm the system if it's working or we are on our own? The Hansard is okay. Senator from Mombasa, proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I think I'll have to start all over again. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Labour and Social Welfare concerning the status of the Human Resource Department of the County Government of Mombasa. Mr. Speaker, sir, the County Government of Mombasa has, since inception of the devolution, attracted adverse reports from the Auditor General on matters human resources. Currently, the recurrent expenditure on human resource is about 48% of the total budget of the county. This is contrary to the provisions of the Public Finance Management Act. In the statement, the committee should highlight, one, state the reasons behind the county government of Mombasa's failure to implement its own report on human resource management within the county. Number two, clarify whether the county government continues to hire, why the county government of Mombasa continues to hire more personnel despite the wage bill exceeding the stipulated 35% maximum under the PFM Act. And number three, outline the steps that the county government of Mombasa has taken to reduce the wage bill to an acceptable level, especially in the light of understaffing in critical departments affecting service delivery. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Wakili Sigei. That statement is dropped. Senator Richard Onyonka.
Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation, Housing on the leasing of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport under the build, operate and transfer model of public-private partnerships to a private company. In the statement, the committee should, Mr. Speaker, inform this House whether the report which was done on the 19th of June 2018 was adopted in terms of the report was done by the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing, and the report was on the inquiry into the proposed Kenya Airways privately initiated investment proposal to Kenya Airports Authority. Mr. Speaker, I want to confirm if the Kenya Airports Authority has entered into an agreement with MS Adani Commercial Limited, a private company, to lease out JKIA under the build, operate, transfer model of PPP, and if so, state the terms of this agreement and indicate the associated costs to be incurred by the airlines and other users of JKIA, if any. Mr. Speaker, The second issue I would like to request is that the committee tables the contract documents of this agreement or any other agreement that has been signed in the Senate and indicate the ownership of MS Adani Commercial, the processes undertaken to identify and award the lease, and state whether there was public participation in the process. Mr. Speaker, I would like also the statement by the committee to state whether a tendering process, a proper tendering process of this agreement was done. And I would like them to indicate the ownership. Sorry, Mr. Speaker. And I would also like them to disclose the details of the award of the contract, the number of bids received, the criteria used in selecting the company awarded, as well as the cost of the award. Number 4, provide the details of the contract between Kenya Airports Authority, the Mezes ALG, a Spanish company that transacted as the advisor to this deal, indicating the ownership of the company, the processes undertaken to identify the award of contract, to develop an air transport policy for Kenya, and the subsequent payment of the 160 million shillings to this company. Mr. Speaker, I would like the committee to furnish the Senate with the notices of meetings, the agendas and the minutes and resolutions which the board of KAA passed on the 15th July 2024. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I would like also to state whether the committee chair should inform this House whether the government plans, as it has been stated by the MOU that is available, whether the government is planning to avail free land to this company known as Adani to build a city-state side development on this land, which may lead to many disputes and issues on that land. And Mr. Speaker, I would like the committee chair to tell us whether the Ministry of Land has been involved in this transaction also. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Statement pursuant to Standing Order 53-1, the Senate Majority Leader. Call the next order. Okay, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, pursuant to Standing Order number 57-1, I hereby present the business of this Senate for the week commencing Tuesday, 30th July 2024. Mr. Speaker, sir, the status of the legislative business before the Senate is as follows. 49 bills are pending conclusion in the Senate, of which 42 are at the second reading stage, while 7 are at the Committee of the Whole. 20 motions are pending conclusion, 21 petitions are due for reporting, and 378 statements are under consideration and by respective standing committees. While I am delighted, Mr. Speaker, that some progress has been made on the debate on bills at the second reading stage, there is a build-up at the division level which we must address. As indicated in today's order paper, orders number 8 to 16, we have pending business awaiting decision on division. I request the majority and the minority whips to mobilize the requisite number of delegations for the voting to be undertaken. With respect to business for the coming week, the Senate Business Committee will meet on Tuesday, the 30th July 2022 to consider the business for the week. The tentative business for Tuesday will include business not concluded from today's order paper, as well as business indicated in the notice paper attached to the order paper for today. However, at its meeting on Tuesday, 23rd July 2024, the Senate Business Committee resolved to prioritize consideration of select committee business. I request respective committee chairpersons and movers of the business scheduled to prioritize plenary sittings to prosecute their business. Mr. Speaker, sir, the tentative business for Wednesday, 31st July 2024, during the morning sitting, will include business not concluded in the order paper for Tuesday, 30th July 2024, and the following motions. 1. Report of the 147th Assembly of the Inter-Parliamentary Union IEPU and related meetings held in Luanda, Angola on the 23rd to 27th of October 2023. And 2. Report of the Inter-Parliamentary Union IPU Global Conference of Young Parliamentarians held in Hanoi, Vietnam from 15th to 17th of September 2023. 3. Report of the Kenya delegation to the extraordinary session of the 6th Parliament of the Pan-African Parliament, PAP, held at the Galanga Convention Center in Midrand, South Africa from 20th to 27th of March 2024. 4. Report of the Kenyan delegation to the 148th Assembly of the Inter-Parliamentary Union IPU and related meetings that were held in Geneva, Switzerland from 23rd to 27th March 2024, and 5. Report of the 14th Ordinary Session of the Plenary Assembly and related meetings of the Forum of Parliaments of the International Conference on the Great Lakes region held in Livingstone, Zambia from 15th to 19th April 2024. 6. Establishment of a monthly car-free day and county car-free zones. 7. Addressing the challenge of power purchase agreements renewals and electricity supply in Kenya. And finally, the motion on stoppage of funds to Isiolo County due to the failure by the governor to honor Senate summons. Mr. Speaker, sir, the business for Tuesday, 31st July 2024, during the afternoon sitting, will include business not concluded on the order paper for Tuesday, 30th July 2024, and the following businesses. A. Bills at committee of the whole stage. These include the Gambling Control Bill, National Assembly Bills number 70 of 2023, 2. The T Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 1 of 2023, the Maternal, Newborn and Child Health Bill, Senate Bill number 17 of 2023, the Meteorological Bill, Senate Bills number 45 of 2023, the Nuts and Oils Crops Development Bill, Senate Bills number 47 of 2023, 6. The Cancer Prevention and Control Amendment Bill number 2, Bill National Assembly Bills number 45 of 2022, and the National Construction Authority Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 59 of 2022. B. Bills at the second reading stage, namely the Wildlife Conservation and Management Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 46 of 2023, the Wildlife Conservation and Management Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 49 of 2023, the Cooperative Societies Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 53 of 2023, and the Early Childhood Education Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 54 of 2023. C. Motions, namely development of a policy and law for social risk management in the infrastructure development of projects in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, the projected business for Thursday, the 1st of August, 2024, will be business not concluded in the order papers for Tuesday 30th and Wednesday 31st July, and any other business scheduled by the Senate Business Committee. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and hereby lay the statement on the table of this Senate on behalf of the Leader of the Majority, the Senator of Kericho, Aaron Cheruiyot, MGH, MP, Senate Majority Leader. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wakili Sigei, having explained yourself, your statement is restated. You may proceed to read your statement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for recommitting my statement, which I came in shortly after you had dropped. I really want to thank you for that. And Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Roads and Transportation of this House regarding stalled and or abandoned infrastructure projects in Bomet County. Mr. Speaker, several incomplete and abandoned infrastructure projects in Bomet County represent a significant waste of public resources and have deprived the residents of Bomet of the services and benefits they rightfully deserve. I would like to highlight the specific projects that have remained incomplete or abandoned for between 3 to 10 years, leading to substantial waste of public resources. Mr. Speaker, under 1, the Governor's residence, which is in Mutarapwa Ward, under Department of Administration, Chesayan Ward offices, these are ward offices within Chesayan Ward, under Department of Administration, Kembu Ward offices in Chamaner Ward, under Department of Administration, Nyangores Ward offices in Nyangores Ward, under Administration, Ndanai Ward offices in Ndanai Abosi Ward, under Administration, and those under roads, Mr. Speaker, is Southset Kap Kirib Road, under roads in Kembu Ward, Kolongei Kipsigis Road, under Cheptabas in Roads Department, Merigi Sort TTI Access Road, Mogoyuet Ngainet Road, Chesumer Sibayan Chemobei Road, under roads as well. This is in Kabletunda Ward. And finally, Kiswahili Bridge. This is one of the bridges, Mr. Speaker, that went viral in the media under Silibwet Township Ward. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, the committee should A, provide reasons leading to each of the projects remaining stalled, abandoned, incomplete, and or unutilized. 2, provide minutes of the tender awards, copies of the tender advertisements, and tender evaluation reports for each of the projects listed above. C, provide the bills of quantities for each project and their implementation status and or development stage, and outline the budgetary allocation, expenditure, payments made to the respective contractors, and any pending payment. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, state the timelines within which these projects are anticipated to be completed and or put into use. Senator Sigei, Bomet County. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 8, the Houses of Parliament Bicameral Relations Bill, National Assembly Bills number 44 of 2023, second reading division.
That order is deferred. Next.
Order number 9, the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 40 of 2023, second reading division.
That order is deferred. Next order.
Order number 10, the Street Vendors Protection of Livelihood Bill, Senate Bills number 41 of 2023, second reading division.
That order is deferred. Next order.
Order number 11, the Law of Succession Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number of 2023, second reading division.
That order is deferred. Next order.
Order number 12, the Public Transport Motorcycle Regulation Bill, Senate Bills number 38 of 2023, second reading division.
That order is deferred. Next order.
Order number 13, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment number 2 Bill, Senate Bills number 52 of 2023, second reading division.
That order is deferred. Next order.
Order number 14, the Fire and Rescue Services Professionals Bill, Senate Bills number 55 of 2023, second reading division.
That order is deferred. Next order.
Order number 15, motion, report of the Select Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the Social Health Insurance General Regulations 2024 and the Social Health Insurance Tribunal Procedure Rules 2024 division.
That order is deferred. Next order.
Order number 16, motion, report of the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the status of implementation of projects funded by the conditional grant for the construction of county headquarters division.
That order is deferred. Next order.
Order number 17, motion, report of the Standing Committee on Health on the inquiry into the alleged irregularities in the procurement of long-lasting insecticide-treated nets at the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority. Question to be put.
Clerk, confirm that we have the requisite number. We do. Senator Wakoli, take your seat. Now, honorable senators, I'll proceed to put the question, which is that the Senate adopt the report of the Standing Committee on Health on the inquiry into alleged irregularities in the procurement of long-lasting insecticide-treated nets at the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority, KEMSA, laid on the table of the Senate on Wednesday, the 8th of May, 2024. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 18, the Local Content Bill, Senate Bills number 50 of 2023, second reading.
Honorable Speaker, I will request that we get to the next speaker so that I sort myself out.
Senator Chirake Samson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. When you know it's approaching weekend, it's understandable. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the Local Content Bill 2023. Mr. Speaker, the issue of extractive minerals and control any natural resource anywhere across the world, Mr. Speaker, continues to evoke serious reservations, especially when the local communities are not involved, Mr. Speaker. Especially the issue of minerals, the issue of oil. When you visit the Delta State, which should be where the dollar billionaires from Nigeria are, Mr. Speaker, that region is always unstable. I think they call it oil cars. You go countries like Congo, Mr. Speaker, DRC Congo has all the minerals in the world and the rainforest, but the stability continues to be scarce like a snowball in hell, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when you go to Nigeria, part of Delta region, as I have indicated, the issue of natural resources. And I was watching a documentary, and for of us who have been very keen about natural resources, Mr. Speaker, you will realize that that region remains unstable because only when people are being interviewed, because I watch in one of the leading channels, they will always complain, Mr. Speaker, that the exploitation and extraction of natural resources has not benefited the local population. And in as much as it has made billionaires, dollar billionaires from that region, Mr. Speaker, and you know there is a famous saying in Nigeria that when you board British Airways, you don't turn to your right, you only turn to your left, Mr. Speaker, and they only use first and second class. They don't go to economy class when they are boarding the plane, Mr. Speaker, because of the beauty of natural gas, natural oil that it is in Nigeria, other countries across Africa. I think somebody quipped somewhere that the reason we don't have oil gas in Kenya is because we do not have oil. Until the other day, Turkana, under Tool Oil program, Mr. Speaker, was able to be exploited. And you realize, Mr. Speaker, and you are governor then, that at that time, there was a lot of uncertainty about the management of Tool Oil, because I remember at some point, and it was reported in media, that the local population didn't even block the lorries from transporting oil from Turkana to be exported, the crude oil. And people who have lived long enough, like Senior Counsel Senator Okongo Mgeni, is familiar with such, Mr. Speaker. So this issue of natural resources, gas, oil, and other hydrocarbon resources are very critical. Like Tanzania, Mr. Speaker, there was a issue where to get the gas into Kenya and then be repackaged, especially cooking gas, to make it affordable, Mr. Speaker. We are in the era of the issue of environmental conservation and protection, where we are now discouraging use of firewood, Mr. Speaker, because we don't want to destroy and exploit the forests in the country. And therefore, gas that is naturally, that is there, exploitation and extraction of the same to be used for cooking and other industrial purposes is very critical, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when you look at our Constitution, under environment and natural resources, especially Article 69, the state has been obligated to ensure the extractive of natural resources from minerals, oil and gas, and other hydrocarbon extractives, Mr. Speaker. The state is obligated to participate in such, Mr. Speaker. So what we are doing under this bill, I don't know, Mr. Speaker, you know, we are legislating. I don't know whether we are over-legislating or we are legislating, but the Constitution that we passed 2010, Mr. Speaker, we still have a lot to go through. Under Article 69, this issue of local content, and I remember in the previous session, I've seen this under the chairperson of energy, I think under the former Senator Agnes Zani, was very passionate about local content bill. And at that time, Mr. Speaker, even under the mining, we need to bring all those issues. Because, Mr. Speaker, when you look under Mining Act, Mr. Speaker, we have a process of 70-20-10, where 70% of the revenue in extractive process is taken to national, 20% to county, and 10% to local community. We must ensure we bring it under one bill, Mr. Speaker, so that we don't have one in Mining Act, Mining Act. And I'm happy the former CS, your colleague, your neighbor, Governor Mfuria, was well versed with the issue of mining, Mr. Speaker. And our concern, even in Nandi, Mr. Speaker, we are talking about gold. I have gold in Karebe, Mr. Speaker. But my people have never benefited in any way, Mr. Speaker. We only see choppers coming in and out, the gold being taken away. We don't know how many kilos, Mr. Speaker. There has never been proper use of that natural resource, Mr. Speaker. So the issue of gold, even when you go to Migori, where my brother Migori, I have seen Senator Kalwale was in the chamber. Mr. Speaker, in fact, Nandi is the biggest producer of gold in Kenya. I'm surprised that the gold oil refinery was being built in Kakamega. Yet when you go to Kakamega, Kakamega, Mr. Speaker, you know, can you protect me? Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader, you should lead by example. Sir, you know the CS nominee for Interior.
And you know the CS nominee is a friend of Aaron, so I don't know why he wants to give out already occupied. But I know in the second coming of the kingdom, Mr. Speaker, Senator Sifuna might be a beneficiary. Mr. Speaker, of course, after discussing with ODM Central Committee and Parliamentary Group on that issue, Mr. Speaker, what we are just saying is that, for example, Nandi is the biggest gold producer. Even Kilimapesa, Mr. Speaker. Even when you go to the part of coast, Kitui, Mr. Speaker, this country has huge. We have rubies. We have a lot of exploitation and minerals and extractives, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and therefore I know there is a gold oil refinery being built in Kakamega, Mr. Speaker. We are proposing, in my own opinion, because Nandi is the leading gold producer in the country, and I've seen it myself, Mr. Speaker, and I have numbers. We are paying almost, the company pays 300 million through tax, Mr. Speaker. But when you go to Kakamega, Mr. Speaker, they have what we call mundane, the historical around Kakamega region, Mr. Speaker. So that belt of gold goes through Vihiga all the way to Kakamega, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and therefore, under Article 69, we must also ensure exploitation should meet environmental standards, Mr. Speaker. And this bill has really tried, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that we ensure, Mr. Speaker, and we also move, and I'm happy that the coastal Kenya, we have now the mining and blue economy, where we need to take care of biodiversity, Mr. Speaker. We must be compliant such that when we are doing mining along the coastal city, along the coastal counties of coast part of this country, Mr. Speaker, the biodiversity and genetic resources must be protected. Because we are, Mr. Speaker, you remember in the issue of fishing in international waters, we have some countries that have been blacklisted for overfishing, Mr. Speaker, and using trawlers that are not agreed, and therefore they destroy even biodiversity and genetics, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this Article 1969 that has developed a premise upon this act, the local content bill, is everything is local, Mr. Speaker. Everything is local. You must listen to what the people are saying, but the only way to make it value for the ordinary mwananchi, down there where this exploitation is done of minerals, Mr. Speaker, be it extractives like oil and gas and hydrocarbon, Mr. Speaker, that you want to extract, you must ensure that the national government, and we must reduce this, and I have seen, Mr. Speaker, we should ensure that 50% goes to the national government of the revenue, be it gold, be it oil and gas. Then, Mr. Speaker, the 20% to go to county. Then the 30% should go to that local community, Mr. Speaker. Even in the issue of water, you remember the issue of Muranga, Mr. Speaker. Muranga, most of the water, we were developing a tunnel that will bring water from Muranga all the way to Nairobi to satisfy the needs, Mr. Speaker. Why is it that when you go to Muranga, the people of Muranga, for example, do not have sufficient water, yet people from Nairobi are benefiting from it, Mr. Speaker? Even in Nandi County, Mr. Speaker, in Mgwen sub-county, Chesume sub-county, our water is being used in Kakamega. But when you go to Tuya Bay and around Kapkangani, Mr. Speaker, Kiptuya areas, they don't have water. So the essence, Mr. Speaker, is having at least the local content being valued at that people, Mr. Speaker, with that. And I'm happy the Senator Muranga, my brother, Senator Nyutu, should follow up, because at the end of the day, we are taking all water, Mr. Speaker, to Nairobi. But when you go to Muranga, water and sanitation company, Mr. Speaker, it becomes a problem. So we must listen to the ground, kusikiza ground, Mr. Speaker, so that you don't attract unnecessary, Mr. Speaker, from unnecessary from the people. Mr. Speaker, number 2, when you look at clause number 3, Kenya is still very clean because it talks about exploitation of gas and other petroleum resources. Mr. Speaker, we need to resolve the issue of Tulo oil. I know the capacity and the projection that we wanted, Mr. Speaker, especially in Turkana. We must ensure the people of Turkana are beneficiaries, Mr. Speaker. And I'm happy the Senator of Turkana, and I think the Energy Committee Mr. Speaker, should ensure at least if Tulo Oil is exploring and mining and extracting petroleum and oil, Mr. Speaker, at least it should give value, Mr. Speaker, to the people of Turkana, for example. At least, Mr. Speaker. And my proposal has always been very simple, under local content. Let us review from 70%. Let us give 50 national, give 30 local community, Mr. Speaker, and then give 20% to counties, because at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, when you are exploiting these resources, you might end up destroying the roads, maybe water, Mr. Speaker, you might, and a lot of process that is needed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when you look at clause number 11, Mr. Speaker, this assessment, and under Article 10, we must look at the public participation, because under clause number 11, Mr. Speaker, this assessment of local capabilities, Mr. Speaker. When you look at clause number 9 and 10, it talks about establishment local development committee. Mr. Speaker, under the Mining Act, it says about Mining Development Committee. And that committee, Mr. Speaker, is very important, because if you are generating revenue, for example, and you are saying this revenue, Mr. Speaker, 50% to go to national, 30% should go to the local community, and maybe 20% should go to counties. In terms of division of that revenue, Mr. Speaker, the 30% you must have a gazetted local content development committee, Mr. Speaker. I don't see, and I hope the mover of the motion is noting, we already have a mining development committee under the Mining Act. Now you want to establish a local content development committee. It will be what we call overlapping duties, Mr. Speaker. Is it possible to amend the Mining Act 2015, Mr. Speaker, and the mining rules under 2015 to ensure that we don't need to establish local development committee and establish mining development committee? But in principle, I agree that this committee should be there, Mr. Speaker, so that the revenue that is developed, Mr. Speaker, it can be shared. For example, when we were pushing for Karebe reforms, Mr. Speaker, gold, we wanted a gazetted mining development committee that out of almost 200 million US dollars that was being generated by the company for some time, even if they get 10% of around 2 million or 200,000 US dollars, Mr. Speaker, around 20 million Kenyan shillings, they were able to sit down and agree in terms of dispensary around Chemase, in terms of roads around Kibisem or other areas within Chemelil, Chemase, and even other parts of Nandi County, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, the establishment is very important, but of course, I hope the drafter of the motion should ensure that the local development mining committee, the local content development committee, Mr. Speaker, are able in possibility to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that they function properly and value. Mr. Speaker, quickly, because I had only 4 points, let's go to clause number 26, Mr. Speaker. It talks about employment and development plan. Mr. Speaker, the challenge we have, excuse me, the challenge we have is that most of these expatriate companies, Mr. Speaker, or foreign companies, work into the country. They just work in and import expatriates. Yet we need to develop that technology, Mr. Speaker. What would you explain that you have to fly somebody from India or from, we must agree under local content. When an expatriate comes to Migori, Kilimapesa, when they are doing extractives of the minerals in Kilimapesa, where my brother, Senator, Mr. Speaker, and of late, maybe I've been away too much, my brother, Senator from Migori, has always appeared relaxed nowadays, and he always smiling. I don't know because of Azimio la Kenya Kwanza government or what is happening. Mr. Speaker, the point when you go around Kilimapesa region, Kilimapesa, is it Kilimapesa? With this in Migori, Mr. Speaker, when you go to that region, when we give an expatriate or a company, it is the duty under this law to develop the technology of those people. It doesn't make sense, Mr. Speaker, in 21st century that we have to fly an oil engineer all the way from China or even from America, Mr. Speaker, while we can develop our issues, Mr. Speaker. Clause number 27, education and training for locals, I agree. Especially, I remember, Mr. Speaker, mining of gold, you use mercury cyanide. I realize that the companies are not doing training, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that the people we have in one place or another, Mr. Speaker, are being able to train adequately, Mr. Speaker. We must agree that we must train. For example, if today a gold mine is decommissioned, how does the local community allow their chemicals, the training, handling of those chemicals, handling of the oil, handling of the minerals and other extractives, Mr. Speaker? We must develop the capacity training, Mr. Speaker. And you know nowadays, if you don't do public participation, in the Kiambu case of 2013, the courts pronounced themselves that public participation is no longer an option, and involves the civic education, the training for the locals, Mr. Speaker, and I think it is very important, Mr. Speaker. I agree, clause number 30, the transfer of technology, of course, is very critical under the guidance of the Cabinet Secretary of Mining and Blue Economy, Mr. Speaker, and I know that it will be very important because the transfer of technology, when the nominees of Cabinet Secretaries will be confirmed, it should set out a strategic plan on how they can ensure there is local content. Up and short, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, what I can say about this bill, because I would want to allow my colleagues, is just local content. What does the value of the ordinary mwananchi when you have oil in Turkana, when you have gold in Nandi, when you have rubies and other extractives, when you have oil and gas, Mr. Speaker? Which benefit is it to it, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, it is very important, Mr. Speaker, that we look at it. We must ensure, Mr. Speaker, some of the conflicts that we see is because of natural resources. But now we are giving opportunity, Mr. Speaker, and I'll request the mover, Senator Wahome Wamatinga, to amend to ensure that when it comes to the Local Content Development Committee, let us give 50 to national government, give 20 to counties, and then 30 to local communities so that they can plan themselves, Mr. Speaker. I think that is very important going into the future. In fact, the issue of licensing, fund for training and development fund, Mr. Speaker, I agree, because this is a straightforward bill, Mr. Speaker, that will come in handy, especially, Mr. Speaker. But the upshot is that I'm happy it has adhered to the principles of Article 69 on the issue of sustainable exploitation. Mr. Speaker, just in conclusion, the caveat is that we must ensure sustainable exploitation. Mr. Speaker, you know we are struggling with two things. We want to be compliant in terms of environmental protection and conservation, and then we want to be compliant in terms of exploitation of natural resources to benefit. So we must ensure there is sustainable. The word is sustainable exploitation of resources within that particular, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, with those many remarks, I beg to support and I'll bring amendments, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to make my contribution to this local content bill 2023. Mr. Speaker, this bill is very critical and is long overdue because we need to have a clear framework to facilitate the process of local ownership, control, and financing of activities related to exploitation of minerals. Mr. Speaker, this is very important bill, and as the member who has been on the floor has said, we will be seeking to improve it further so that to ensure that it serves the local communities and all the stakeholders. Mr. Speaker, as I'm speaking to this bill, I wanted to say that tomorrow my county will be launching the Granite factory at a place called Buyangu in my county, and is a partnership between the Ministry of Mining and an investor. And this bill comes at a very appropriate time that this project is now being officially launched. This project has been on for several years, and I want to thank the governor of Vihiga, Governor Otichiro, for having played a big role in ensuring that this project takes off from the days when he was a member of parliament for Emuhaya. And now the project is going to be launched tomorrow. Mr. Speaker, while I appreciate that this project is going to employ thousands and thousands of our people, and also to improve the economic position of our people, especially in Emuhaya and Luanda, I have had an engagement with the Ministry of Mining on this issue. And there are gray areas which I hope the ministry is going to address. Mr. Speaker, when we have a situation where a county government engages an investor and the national government, I think it's important Article 187 of the Constitution has to be complied with, so that the interests of the county government, the interest of the national government, and the interest of the investor are captured. When we have a situation where a county government gives land for the project and then ends up not having any agreement with the investor and with the national government, Mr. Speaker, I find that to be not in order. So I have raised concern because the people of West Bunyore gave their land, and they gave the land through the county government. And then the national government took over the land for this project, which is fine. But the people need to be compensated for their land. Or at least we need to have an agreement as per Article 187 so that the community benefits from that arrangement. Mr. Speaker, allow me to talk about this project because this bill is making a lot of reference to that project, and having looked at the specific agreement signed between the national government and the investor, I think a lot needs to be done. While I fully support the project, I want to say that the Ministry of Mining should ensure all the gaps in that project, including the issue of land ownership, the issue of sharing of proceeds from this investment must be within the law. How shall the local community benefit? How shall the county government benefit? And how shall the national government benefit? And how shall the investor benefit? That clarity is very important. I'm moving forward, Mr. Speaker, and I hope this bill will address that problem. We need to have a specific agreement that captures the interests of all the stakeholders. When I went through the file at the ministry, I realized that there is no specific agreement that captures the interest of all the parties. It is just a tender document and an award letter. Mr. Speaker, that is not proper, because that, in the end, we will end up not getting the benefits going to the various stakeholders in the process. So this bill provides a framework under which such arrangement, like the Granite factory, will be ring-fenced so that the communities benefit, the county government benefits, the national government benefits, and also the investor benefits. So, Mr. Speaker, this bill is long overdue, and I want to congratulate the owner of this bill for coming up with this very important bill that is going to help us in our various counties, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, even as we talk about minerals, we have each year passed some conditional grants to the counties. And every year we have that aspect of mineral royalties. And we wonder why some counties don't get mineral royalties. Like my county, a lot of gold activity is happening. Kakamega County, where Senator Halwale represents, a lot of gold activity happens. But now in this house, when we come here to pass the conditional grants, our counties don't get mineral royalties. What happens, Mr. Speaker? Is it that the gold that is mined in our counties is not accounted for or not? And if it's not accounted for, who is responsible? Who is responsible, Mr. Speaker? We cannot have a situation where in our areas we have minerals being mined and our communities do not enjoy mineral royalties. This bill should address the issue of mineral royalties. And I will be seeking amendments on that, Mr. Speaker, so that we do not have a situation where we have mining activities happening in our counties and our people cannot get the benefits through royalties from those mineral activities. Mr. Speaker, this bill also talks about the role of the national government and the role of the county government. It is important to give clarity because some of the agreements that have been signed so far, Mr. Speaker, are not clear on what county governments are going to do. Are not clear what county governments will be doing on matters of minerals, like gold in our counties. I brought a question here, Mr. Speaker, on the issue of gold mining in Vihiga County. And I was surprised that the county government of Vihiga is not aware of what is happening within their backyard. Some unscrupulous people, some from China, others from other places, have invaded my county. They are mining. People are staying on top of big holes. And that is a disaster in waiting, Mr. Speaker. And the county government is doing nothing about it. The national government is doing very little about it. They responded to my statement here, Mr. Speaker, that they were going to do something. Temporarily, they chased away the company that was mining. After a few weeks, the Chinese came back and started doing the same things. So I hope the Ministry of Mining, which is now going to be under Hassan Joe, is going to do a better job than what we have been seeing. He's going to do a better job. Because what we have been seeing in the Ministry of Mining was laxity. Corruption through cartels of miners who come to our counties to invest.
Senator Osoti, there's a point of order. What is your point of order, Minority Leader?
Asante Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, hoja yangu ya nidhamu ni kwamba Osoti ni rafiki yangu sana. Na ndugu yangu twasikizana sana. Lakini ifikapo mambo ya bunge na sheria za bunge ni kwamba huwezi kumtaja mtu ambaye hakuitwa na bunge ama hakuja kuwa na taarifa fulani kwamba aje na hakuja, alafu unamtaja kwa njia ambayo si njia ambayo ya kisawasawa. Mimi naona pale hapo mtaja, je ni haki? Mimi nauliza, je ni haki kulingana na sheria zetu unaweza kumtaja mtu bila kabla hajaitwa katika bunge kwa njia mbaya ambao hawezi kupata nafasi ya kujitetea?
Minority Leader, I don't think the Honorable Joho was named in bad light. In fact, Honorable Osotsi said, I hope the incoming CS, and that's where the name of Honorable Joho was dropped. Yes, and that is not bringing the name of Honorable Joho in bad light. He hopes that the incoming CS for mining will do a better job because, according to his own opinion, he said there was laxity. So his hope is that this time around, with Joho at the helm of the ministry, he hopes that things will be different. So I don't think he's out of order. I don't think he's out of order. Proceed, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for protecting. Indeed, I made some statement in good faith because we all know that Honorable Joe is capable of doing a better job. So I was just saying, he's the right person to clean the mess in the mining sector. And I hope he starts with the vehicle.
What is your point of order, Senator Chimera?
Mr. Speaker, I rise understanding on the 105, Mr. Speaker. And my point of order is that is the Senator for Vihiga, Senator Osotsi, in order by implying or insinuating that the immediate former CS for mining, Honorable Salim Mvurya, was presiding in a very corrupt ministry before the cabinet checker, Mr. Speaker. Can the senator substantiate factually where there is any corruption in the ministry, either reported or unreported, with facts, Mr. Speaker?
Senator Chimera, listen to Senator Osotsi so keenly here. And at no one time did he allege the issue of corruption. What he said is, according to his opinion, there was laxity in the ministry, and he hopes that this time around things will be better. Proceed, Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for protecting me. You know, Honorable Chimera is my good friend, but I have not mentioned the name of my good friend Salim Mvurya in any way. I only talked about the ministry. The ministry is not an individual, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was talking about the role of the county government. This bill makes it very clear what county government is going to do in terms of managing the local content through various committees and through specific functions which the county government is going to do. I think this is very progressive, and this will help us in addressing some of the challenges I've said, like the issue of mineral royalties and coming up with the local content plans so that the community's interest is ring-fenced in every project that is undertaken in our counties. Mr. Speaker, this bill also talks about the performance of local content, because some investors are fond of not observing local content regulations, and midway they may decide not to honor the statutory requirement of sharing the benefits of the proceeds from the resources. So this is also going to strengthen the process of managing local content in our country and in our various counties, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this bill also goes further to talk about the strategies for local content development. I think this is very important, Mr. Speaker, that an operator in an area should abide with the process of how he is acquiring the goods and the services. We shall provide a fair opportunity to all local persons who participate in the provision of goods and services in relation to extractive activities that are undertaken by that operator. Mr. Speaker, for example, I had given an example of the Granite factory. Some of this granite will be sourced from various homes, Mr. Speaker. And I think this law will guide how the investor or the operator will be able to get this from the local community and compensate them adequately, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think quite a lot of good provisions here, Mr. Speaker. We will have an opportunity to look at it and fine-tune where we think it is important to clarify some matters, particularly on the roles of committees. What will the committees at the county level and the national level do, and how will that support the process of ensuring that all stakeholders receive adequate benefit from this process? Mr. Speaker, with those remarks, I support with amendments. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator John Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I rise to support the formation of this local content committee and this bill. And Mr. Speaker, because like one senator who spoke before me, to be specific, Senator Cheralgei, referred to my county of Murang'a, Mr. Speaker, where we feed Nairobi with water, in spite of the fact that most of our residents do not have enough or adequate water for drinking and farming, Mr. Speaker. And although this bill relates to mining or minerals and petroleum, Mr. Speaker, I think I'm encouraged to support it because, Mr. Speaker, we will be involving the locals in most of the things to do with this particular exploitation of these resources in the counties, Mr. Speaker. Because looking at Section 4 of this particular bill, Mr. Speaker, we are told the object of the Act is to promote the maximization of value addition and creation of employment opportunities in the extractive industry, Mr. Speaker. In this country, the major problem that we have is that of unemployment of especially young people, Mr. Speaker, and this has a bearing on the events of the last few weeks in this country. And so, Mr. Speaker, when we then have a bill that proposes ways and means of having people gain employment, especially in relation to whatever is available locally, or especially when it is related to locally available materials and the resultant industry, then that becomes very attractive to any well-meaning Kenyan, Mr. Speaker. The participation as envisaged in number 4 of C, to enhance the participation of local persons in extractive industry value chain, is also something that is very encouraging, and that is why I feel we should be able to support this, Mr. Speaker. And although some things, speaking of Murang'a County, Mr. Speaker, where I'm elected, we have an area in a constituency called Maragua and a place called Gakoigo, where we produce very good clay soil that is actually very important in making of pots and even energy-saving jikos. And this is a product that is available locally, and which, if regulated properly, will result to benefits for our people in that particular area and other areas, Mr. Speaker. Looking at number or section 7, number 4, that the committee that will be formed, Mr. Speaker, will facilitate the development and implementation of strategies for the development of local skills, business know-how, technology, financing, capital market development, and wealth capture and distribution. Is also something very progressive because most of our people in our areas lack skill, and when we develop their skill, then the business knowledge and all the things, technology, financing, we will be promoting our people in order for them to do the things that they do in a more skilled way, resulting to higher benefits and profits, Mr. Speaker. The participation of the locals is of paramount importance, and that's why I support this bill, Mr. Speaker. And this will also, when we develop skills through this particular bill, then we'll also be curing some of the age-old traditions, Mr. Speaker. When we go to the bandit-prone areas where we have cattle rustling all the time, if we are able to identify the minerals there, and of course through this bill, then develop the skills of those young men and women, then we could also arrest such problems that have been cycling over the years. But I am concerned about the membership of the committee, because I've been able to go through number 12, Mr. Speaker, and I did not see any provision where the locals will be able to produce a member to this committee. And I think that is one thing that Senator Matinga should consider, because if we are talking about local content, then we should have representation from the locality, Mr. Speaker. And I think with those few benefits that I've seen will result from this bill, I support, but I propose that the membership provisions is adjusted or amended to include a member from the locality, Mr. Speaker. I support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Eddie Okech.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a few thoughts on this very important bill. I think that it is commendable to Senator Matinga for having brought this bill, because I think that local content, when we think generally around mining, oil and gas, there is nothing that can bring inclusive growth at a scale that we need to deal with in this country, like being able to envision a local content framework in the public policy space. Because, Mr. Speaker, we are talking at a time that the country has just experienced a serious uprising of young people who are desolate and don't have jobs. And to the extent that many people have focused on jobs conversation, we even now need to start talking about income conversations. Where jobs are not possible to find, income certainly should come for the purpose of helping young people. And the extractive sector, Mr. Speaker, is indeed the place to be able to anchor this job creation, Mr. Speaker, especially when you think about host communities that are blessed with these resources in terms of minerals, oil and gas. As a Senate, when we visited Turkana last year during our Senate Mashinani, Mr. Speaker, you could see the immense potential of the oil industry that is in Turkana, but you could also see it juxtaposed with the idea that many young people there still don't have job opportunities in equal measures. And therefore, this is a very important bill, Mr. Speaker, that I want to support. However, I want to recognize that the role of devolution is extremely missing on this bill, because the truth is, when you think about the mineral sector, oil and gas, Mr. Speaker, they are industries that are found within the borders of our local communities. And therefore, the ecosystem that this extractive sector then end up affecting in those communities, Mr. Speaker, then affects the entire economic permutation of those counties. So that if you're going to have a proper framework and a proper structure that can be able to make local content of these industries broader, Mr. Speaker, then indeed it has to be housed within the structures of the local communities, which are then empowered by counties, Mr. Speaker. I say this because I come from Migori County, Mr. Speaker, where gold mining is a big industry. There are some urban cities and urban areas that have emanated in terms of being discovered as areas of economic production that then have grown from scratch through mining activities, Mr. Speaker. If you go to Makalda mines and then a place called Osiri Matanda as an emerging developing area in Nyatike constituency, this is an emerging place that has come entirely because of mining in that particular area of gold. If you come further to a place called Masara, Masara Town, not Masara the MP of Suna West, but Masara Town has emerged because of mining activities, and the vibrance there has become as a result of mining. Now, Mr. Speaker, you'll find that because there's mining activity in that area, there are other potential economic activities that are in that area that sometimes suffer the consequences of mining there. For instance, cattle farming in Nyatike is a big industry for the people of Nyatike constituency, but the mining that goes around Nyatike constituency does not allow for economic diversification that can be able to happen within Nyatike. Because everybody, one, focuses on mining in Osiri Matanda, in Makalda mines, and coming all the way to Masara mines in Migori County. But then the mining exercise itself, through the industrial process that are going on there, if unchecked, then end up affecting other economic activities there that, both by design and by choice of people who live in those communities, it becomes extremely difficult to reinforce economic diversification. And that tells you just how important sections like Section 6 of this bill and Section number 9 all through number 12, where the committee is being talked about, must be mainstreamed within the framework that works for counties. For instance, we know that the Urbans and Cities Act, Mr. Speaker, under Section 20 of Urbans and Cities Act, Mr. Speaker, we have got an establishment of municipalities. And those municipalities, Mr. Speaker, are given some fundamental rights in terms of how different economic permutations in our counties work. Now, if you come to a place like Rongo constituency, where I come from, Mr. Speaker, where we have got a municipality, if the municipality structure is not given a voice in terms of the economic permutation that is affected by mining in that area, Mr. Speaker, we would miss out very strongly on the economic diversification that is supposed to happen in these areas. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I do support this, but I would want that perhaps Senator Wamatinga can take note, especially on the roles of the national government vis-a-vis the role of county government stipulated under Part 2 of this particular bill, and be able to reinvent the proper structures that are within counties already that need to take a key role in terms of just thinking about how local content should be developed within the county structures, Mr. Speaker. Because local content is a key area around policy. It is policy that is going to anchor the various elements of local content development in our counties and within the borders of our country. But, Mr. Speaker, you'll understand that the local content policy leaders must then emanate within the structures of counties, Mr. Speaker, so that when you think about this kind of committee, they can even be able to think about things like research and development institutions that can be able to anchor the design and implementation of different policies that then enable the communities to be able to benefit from the proceeds of these minerals, Mr. Speaker. If you also look at issues of sustainability of the knowledge in the mining, oil and gas industry, Mr. Speaker, you'll find that, as some senators have spoken about here, the capacity element of companies that then come and do extraction on our local communities, in our local communities, Mr. Speaker, their capacity is informed by different capital and different resources that they have. But when they come in our communities, like in Migori County, where I've seen a number of Chinese people coming to extract gold, they come with the knowledge, they come with equipment, they come with all the infrastructure but that knowledge is not sustainable, it's not transferable because it's limited to the fact that they have come as private players without a proper local content policy in terms of regulation and framework that allows them to share that knowledge. So that you find that local communities that are in these industries, like if you go to Masara, if you go to Makalda, if you go to Osiri Matanda, the local people there are still doing artisanal mining, whereby they are depending on lack of even simple knowledge of where do you actually get the gold. There has not been shared knowledge about geospatial mapping of where exactly do we extract this gold, and then they still have to use rudimentary form of mining to the extent that even just the scare to life, I think you have seen in a number of places in this country, even in Rikolomani, where Senator Boni comes from, in Rongo, in Migori, you have seen a number of our people, very well-meaning, going to mine without the knowledge, and then they end up dying in the mines, simply because it's not just the issue of capital in terms of investing, but it's also the issue of knowledge. Because when the foreigners come in our places, they have got some basic ways of being able to know through some geospatial mapping that I'm going to exactly this point, and I'm going to exactly extract this kind of gold, which local people don't have. And when they leave, that knowledge is not transferable, Mr. Speaker. This also indeed comes with the idea of business participation and business registration, Mr. Speaker. This bill should have also included the element of business registration for these local businesses, Mr. Speaker. In most cases, you'll find that in mining communities, such as in Kakamega in general and in Migori, I have seen people mining without having a business organization. It is mining for the purposes of survival. It has become so subsistent to the extent that everybody who is extracting find it very difficult to have a local business, Mr. Speaker, that can be able to encourage them to organize, to unionize, and even to bargain for the prices of the commodity that they're having. Indeed, the mining communities, Mr. Speaker, I see some senators, Mr. Speaker, are concerned that I'm talking here, but Cherargei is getting all the credit. Senator Cherargei is getting all the credit on our screens, Mr. Speaker. But I hope that Kenyans have now known how to distinguish between my voice and the voice of Cherargei, and also the knowledge gap. Because I come, not the size, the knowledge gap, because I come from a serious extractive sector. So the content will generally just come, but I think that there's a problem, that there's a technical problem with our screens today, Mr. Speaker. So we just want to make sure that it is not Cherargei interpreting my knowledge to the public. But, Mr. Speaker, that said, that can be dealt with. I also wanted to talk about the idea that the reason why...
What is the point of order, Senator Cherargei?
Mr. Speaker, is it in order, as a statement of fact, to allege and state by Senator of Migori that is more brilliant than me, Mr. Speaker? While the obvious is known, Mr. Speaker, is he aware that I hold a degree of law? I also Kenya School of Law and LLM, Mr. Speaker. In many others, and I have not just said other papers, I've just said what is known, Mr. Speaker. Is it in order for the Senator of Migori to allege that there is a knowledge gap, Mr. Speaker, while he is not my peer in any fora, academically, age-wise, culturally, Mr. Speaker, and even mannerisms and dressing, Mr. Speaker? Is it in order, Mr. Speaker?
Honorable Senators, both Senator Eddy and Senator Cherargei, you're totally out of order. We are not here to weigh each other against how knowledgeable we are. And Senator Eddy, I want to believe that you're saying that in light note. And indeed, if you meant it, then you may have to withdraw it.
Mr. Speaker, I think that I was sharing a matter of fact. And these facts are that the knowledge around gold mining can only be shared very strongly between the Senator of Kakamega the bullfighter and myself, because we have those mines. And I was just trying to help my senior ranking member, Senator Cherargei, to understand how mining is happening in Migori. And I was very specific to Migori and Ikolomani.
Senator
and also,
Eddie, is it your contention that you may have more knowledge regarding this area of minerals as opposed to the Senator Fernandi?
Chair, you know, the matter came because when I was specifically talking about the issue of Migori and Kakamega, Senator Cherargei was appearing on the screen. I was talking about matters Migori and Kakamega, and at that time, Mr. Speaker, is when I saw Senator Cherargei on the screen as I was talking. So I was limiting the knowledge of to Migori and Kakamega, because those are the places I visited in terms of mineral mines. And Senator Cherargei is very far away from those places, so he doesn't understand how those mines work.
But you're not in any way trying to undermine his general
No,
knowledge
I cannot,
in this area.
I don't undermine him in any way, Mr. Speaker.
Proceed.
And Mr. Speaker, also you must remember.
Just proceed and conclude your contribution.
So Mr. Speaker, I also think that it's very important, Mr. Speaker, that this bill allows for the formation of these committees in a way that can be able to allow for development of resource corridors harbored within counties. Because without these resource corridors, Mr. Speaker, the policy framework for local content will not be able to sometimes even help in mainstreaming training skills and reskilling within the structures of counties, Mr. Speaker. So, for instance, Mr. Speaker, today we know that things like TVETs and a number of these training institutes that are within our counties, Mr. Speaker, sometimes do offer courses that are general to the entire population, but are not really focused on the economic permutation of those particular local communities. I would want, for instance, Mr. Speaker, to see it in a place like Uriri, or in a place like Nyatike, or in a place like Kuria West or Kuria East in Migori County, mainstreaming skilling and reskilling of people who are in need of going into the mining sector in Migori County, in those TVETs, Mr. Speaker. I would want to see that if there are places like Kakamega, where there are a number of TVET institutions that are giving skills and reskilling opportunities to young people in Kakamega, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, being able to mainstream the idea of skilling the young people in those places with the economic permutations of those places in the mining sectors. That won't happen if the committee that is proposed here is overly dependent on a structure and policy framework that emanates from the Cabinet Secretary. It will be better if it does emanate from the local policy makers within a framework of the counties, Mr. Speaker. We have also seen, Mr. Speaker, the idea of special economic zones in this country, which was well meant by the Kenya Kwanza government, but then it is not mainstreamed within the economic potential of those mining sectors, Mr. Speaker. This would happen if we reinforce the idea that these committees must then be put within the county infrastructure, Mr. Speaker. I also think that it's very important that industrial partnerships are looked at within the framework of PPP, public-private partnership, Mr. Speaker, that happens, again, within counties' infrastructure, that those policies must emanate from, Mr. Speaker. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I think that it is very important that local content regulations and implementations take into account the biggest function of economic equality, which is the price of commodities. We must have an interface whereby this particular bill allows for the price of commodities of these minerals, oil and gas, to be able to have an avenue of conversation at the county levels, Madam Speaker. Because if we don't have that, Madam Speaker, then the people at the local level that are participating in mining, that are participating in oil and gas, cannot be able to partake on the fair retail price of these commodities, Madam Speaker. For instance, in Migori County today, I don't know how we come with a formula of being able to get the price of gold. And I think that is also true for Kakamega, where Senator Boni comes from, because what happens is that there are middlemen who choose to put any price of it. We don't use the pricing index in India or Dubai. We use the pricing index that local middlemen in our communities do suggest for that particular commodity. And this must change with the coming of this bill so that the committees at the local level can be able to lead and champion the regulations and implementation of the pricing mechanism and the pricing tool that must be akin to what is going on in the global market for those commodities. Global market for gold, Madam Speaker, is something that if the local miners and local communities can be able to partake in directly, then that will be more transformational and more, more transformational for those communities and enable them to create more wealth than if it's just left for an open market that is not organized, Madam Speaker. Therefore, I want to support this bill, but with a caveat that institutional element that has been expressed in this bill from Section 6 to Section 12 of this bill must be looked at with the idea of being able to form those committees at the county level to empower the counties to have control, and true control in this case, of these minerals, oil, and gas, Madam Speaker. Therefore, support with amendments. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Majority Leader, Senator Aaron Cheriot.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to join my colleagues in giving my thoughts on this local content bill, which is an act of Parliament to provide, Mr. Speaker, a framework to facilitate local ownership, control and financing of activities connected with the exploitation of gas and oil, other petroleum resources, to provide framework to increase local value capture along the value chain in the exploration of gas, oil, and other petroleum resources, and for connected purposes. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, my apologies. The first thing that I notice about the bill, and you know this bill, Madam Speaker, has been in Parliament for a while. I think this is a third attempt to legislate this issue of local content. And unfortunately, each time this bill comes to Parliament, there are significant changes that happen to it that sometimes lose the object. Of course, the initial idea is involving the local community, Madam Speaker, in any resources that are found within a specific jurisdiction. If you read, and this is perhaps where we will require the services of the committee to provide clarity, if you read the object of the bill as provided in this act that I'm referring to, Madam Speaker, you will be forgiven to imagine that it only speaks about oil and gas alone, because that's the title that has been given to the bill, and the committee will need to provide clarity later when we are doing amendments, Madam Speaker. It is only when you read deeper into the preliminary parts of the proposed bill, in the definitions and the interpretations, Mr. Speaker, where now they define better and say the extractive industry here means oil, gas, and mining sectors in Kenya, Madam Speaker. But a plain reading of the title can easily confuse. But that's not the real essence of what we intend to do with this bill. We must ask ourselves one question, Madam Speaker, even before going to the ins and outs of this particular bill. What are we trying to achieve? Mining as a sector, Madam Speaker, contributed 120 billion to the Kenyan economy last financial year. And it is the desire of government, if you read the plan which is a Kenya Kwanza manifesto, Madam Speaker, is to grow it towards double digit, make it almost 14 to 20% as a contribution to our GDP. And to do that, Madam Speaker, let's not lie to ourselves. It's not so much about what local people can get as who you can attract to come and invest here so that the locals can benefit. This is not the main problem of this mining or exploration sector, Madam Speaker, in the country. And I like the fact that much as this bill speaks to safeguarding local interest, I wish we had merged this conversation and made it attractive, first of all, for the people with the resources who want to come and mine either the petroleum, the gas, or whatever mining activities that are being done in our various parts of the country, Madam Speaker, so that when we attract them, then we find ways of safeguarding our locals. The problem is, we are speaking about how do we ensure that locals are not exploited? How do we ensure that they benefit, Madam Speaker, from this industry? But first of all, we don't have that industry. The things many of the people, that's why Senator Osotsi, while speaking earlier, mentioned, Madam Speaker, and said, how comes Vihiga, and I think he mentioned Kakamega, they don't benefit when we get conditional grants from the mineral rights? It's because many of the mining activities he's describing and boasting proud of is artisan mining, Madam Speaker. They are not captured anywhere in the records of this country. These are just young men and women with sacks and, those people you see trying to do mining by use of their hands. It is not mining as an industry the way And therefore, the greater challenge to us, and this is what perhaps I want to challenge the committee that is handling this particular bill, is that even as we process this bill, Madam Speaker, and I don't know, probably it is the intention that first of all we address how you secure benefits for the local community that host this whatever is being mined or whatever is being extracted, the extractives industry, Madam Speaker. Well, it's a good thought because also part of the problem, and I know this for a fact, speaking to many people who've come to the country, if you go now to the Ministry of Mining, Madam Speaker, chances are you will run into an investor or somebody that looks well-to-do, and in tow you will find him with a group of villagers, 5, 10 to 11, and you'll ask them, what is it that you guys are here to do? If you go to the boardroom of the Ministry of Mining, every single day there are many such people, and they'll say, oh, these are the community owners of where I have mining rights to, and have been granted consent by the community, and these are the representatives. Therefore, there is no gainsaying for a fact, Madam Speaker, that indeed you need to sort the issue of community interest. How do you tie them? But you must also, Madam Speaker, marry that with the fact that if you are not very careful in how you grant these rights to the community, Madam Speaker, then it is easy not to inspire the confidence of investors. Yet we know between us, Madam Speaker, and the four walls of this parliament, that we don't have the capacity, either technical or financial, Madam Speaker, to grow this industry, the extractives industry, to the level that we aspire to get it as a country. And therefore, I say to the committee that is handling this bill, either you choose to marry the two or handle it the same way you have brought us a bill here, Madam Speaker, encouraging us to lock on the interest of the local community, then can they immediately either merge into this particular bill or separately in another bill, Madam Speaker, ensure that you also counterbalance the commitment that you're giving to the local community with incentives for the people with the money and the know-how to come and run these industries, Madam Speaker. Because if you don't provide the guarantees for them, if we don't become sensitive and attractive for business, Madam Speaker, we will just have a good law, but it will just gather dust in our shells. There's nobody who's going to come here, Madam Speaker. If they are told that even if you get a license in Nairobi, Madam Speaker, you cannot go to Migori and mine the gold that Senator Eddie is talking about, of what use is that to an investor? Of what use is it to the people of Narok at Kilimapesa, Madam Speaker, if we don't provide that particular incentive to the investors, Madam Speaker? The people can stay with their gold the same way it has stayed for the thousands of years that it has been there. Therefore, Madam Speaker, I contend and I hold the view, Madam Speaker, that while this is a good and a positive step to begin with, and I will speak to the benefits and perhaps whatever little additions I have to the bill, I think, Madam Speaker, this is only 20% of whatever is needed for that industry to thrive. And I'll give perhaps an unrelated example. You know, Madam Speaker, business processing out of services, the young people that you're encouraging to work the president has been speaking about digital hubs across the country, where we are training our young people by the use of computers to work for companies that are set out of the country. It's an industry that has been trying to thrive and setting foot in Kenya. This is an industry, for example, Madam Speaker, that is dominated by Philippines and India. But Kenya has such a good competitive advantage, for the simple fact, Madam Speaker, that Kenya has such a young and literate population, and they speak very good English as compared to the Filipinos and the Indians. Therefore, many of those companies are working hard to try and set up in Kenya. But remember, if you follow news very closely, you know that one of the companies that was contracted by Meta is a company, the parent company of Facebook, that was operating somewhere in our special economic zones, I think at the river. They closed shop the other day. Why is it so, Madam Speaker? If you dig deeper, and I have followed that case up to the ruling that was given by the High Court in that particular case, is the fact that the investors that are in that particular industry, Madam Speaker, are saying, please appreciate and understand that we are contracted service provider. For example, on that specific company, the name of a company disappears out of our mind. They were content moderators. You remember, like now we have been having these challenges with social media and the rest. If you post things that are either offensive or graphic and the likes, there are companies that are contracted to flag that information and take it out. These are third-party engagements. And therefore, unfortunately, a Kenyan went to court and sued the parent company that had been contracted, that had contracted this company that was operating out of Kenya. And a judge in the High Court of Kenya gave a ruling and insisted that the company which contracted this company that is in Kenya must pay. Such issues, Madam Speaker, then it means no other investor will dare touch Kenya, because they know that we don't appreciate, we don't understand that space. Because they are saying, why are you suing us? We have no contract with you as government of Kenya. It is a third party that has an agreement with you that was supposed to sort the issues with that particular staff. I am speaking, Madam Speaker, to the issue of listening to the industry and the players and appreciating them. From government, Madam Speaker, the executive, and even us at the legislature, when you are passing laws, Madam Speaker, such as this, what is it that you are doing that ensures, Madam Speaker, that we provide sufficient cushion and cover and make it attractive? What are the things that an investor looks at, Madam Speaker, before they decide where to place their money in their next venture? When a company is seated somewhere out of London and out of the country and the far-flung corners of the world, Madam Speaker, what is it that will attract them to Kenya? What is it that will make that executive make a decision and say, I think this is a good place to invest if this is what their laws are? That is a challenge that I pose to us, especially when you are dealing with such industries, Madam Speaker, that predominantly we have no control of, either by technical ability or financial, Madam Speaker, as such that when we are creating the laws, such as what is before us, ensuring that you come up with a committee that files a field development plan and the things that are listed in this particular bill, I hold the view, Madam Speaker, that that is barely scratching the surface. The more difficult work...
Sorry to interrupt you, Majority Leader. Technical team, thank you for updating the transmission. Please make sure we can see the most current proceedings in Senate. You've been transmitting what is immediately passed. Thank you. You can proceed, Majority Leader.
So, Madam Speaker, let me just give, for example, clause 28 of the bill. It speaks of an operator, which is a company that is carrying out the business of these extractives. That number one, it shall give first consideration to the employment of local persons who have requisite expertise or qualification in various levels of the extractive in accordance with this act. And you say minimize the employment of foreign personnel. These are what I call, Madam Speaker, potential areas of conflict that we need not legislate. I completely hold a different view with this particular issue, Madam Speaker, because employment is a very sensitive issue. And in a country that is defunct of resource or employment opportunities such as Kenya, Madam Speaker, the minute you start legislating things such as this, then you're setting up investors. And no investor will set foot. Madam Speaker, this thing is so serious. I saw in the neighboring county of, and Senator Cherargei is not here, of Nandi, An investor who runs a tea factory the other day was being taken to task in all this madness that has been going around of young people and demanding for opportunities. They are being told that your CEO must be a local from this county. Not even from the region, not even from the tribe, that they must come to that county. The minute we begin to legislate things such as what is in Clause 28, Madam Speaker, about expertise, this is not a matter that you want to speak to and put in law. And I hold the view that, Madam Speaker, the minute you legislate and want to put it in law, these are what you call the turn-offs to an investor. Because if I am putting my $1, $2, $3, $4, $5 million, because these are very expensive equipment, either for exploitation of gas, oil, Madam Speaker, or even mining of gold, Madam Speaker, that despite the investment that I'm putting in, Madam Speaker, you want to dictate to me who I employ. I don't think as an investor I will take the risk to come to your country, because tomorrow you'll be taking me to court. If I tell you that these machines can only be operated by specific people, you'll say, no, he's a graduate. It's not just about an issue of graduating and having the expertise, Madam Speaker. What experience, what capabilities, Madam Speaker, culturally? Do we agree? Do we share the same values, Madam Speaker? Therefore, these are things that are either left to regulation or licensing conditions, but not to be elevated, Madam Speaker, to the level of statute. And I continue to insist, Madam Speaker, that as Parliament, we must learn to listen to the industry. The industry, we came the other day from Mombasa, and we had a round table with KEPSA. Madam Speaker, you were there. And part of the criticism that they continue to give to us as legislators and as lawmakers of the country, Madam Speaker, is that we listen to the government side alone. That many times we make law with the government, the executive and the people in mind, without considering that there has to be a counterbalance. You can protect the people, but if the industries are not there, what happens? Therefore, as legislators, Madam Speaker, we must rise to the occasion and appreciate the need to ensure that we balance both the needs of the investors, the people that are coming up to set these industries, Madam Speaker, and the local communities such as what you're speaking to. So I pointed out to the deficiency in terms of operation of this law in Section 28. The last one, Madam Speaker, is Clause 30, which speaks to the transfer of technology and research plan, that the CS shall, in consultation with the committee, in collaboration with relevant state agency, formulate a strategic plan to transfer of technology with respect to various operations in extractive industry. B, publicize in such a manner that it shall consider appropriate strategic plan. Though it appears plain, Madam Speaker, but some of these things are patented. And the people that engage, this is a competitive industry. How, if you go deep into detail of how the mining and extractive industries work, Madam Speaker, you may think it is just a simple matter of sinking in the machinery and coming out with whatever you're extracting out, Madam Speaker. But in terms of strategy and practice, what one company does, Madam Speaker, is not the same thing as what another company does. And these are matters of patent. Companies have spent their money, they have researched, Madam Speaker, and they are able to achieve different factors depending on the resources that they have deployed, Madam Speaker, if they are granted the opportunity. Therefore, to demand of them and grant this issue of the transfer of technology, Madam Speaker, it's not a bad thing. I agree with the need to secure that, but we must maybe tighten that conversation so that it is upon certain agreed conditions with the investor. There are many other things that I would wish to speak about, Madam Speaker, with issues on research. For example, that you need to submit, Clause 35, your research and development plan for 5 years and so on and so forth. I would rather, Madam Speaker, that this conversation, Madam Speaker, be complete by ensuring that apart from securing the locals, Madam Speaker, in the bill, that we listen to the industry as well in terms of how willing are they to contribute. Therefore, this is a good start, Madam Speaker, because it is an attempt at ensuring that nobody exploits our people, as is the case. This is an industry, Madam Speaker, for example, the extractive industry, that if we were to spend significant time and energy and resources, Madam Speaker, would actually help to grow Kenya's economy to the next level, Madam Speaker. All these issues that you're struggling with on taxes and revenue-raising measures, if we concentrated and did better in this particular industry, Madam Speaker, then the country can even accelerate and grow to a better stage than what is available presently. It bothers me, Madam Speaker, that there are various countries across the region whose economy is not even as diverse or advanced as Kenya, but as a share of their GDP, mining contributes more than what we earn, Madam Speaker. And you need to study the mining reports from across even the continent. And I'm not speaking South Africa and Congo, countries that are way advanced in extractive industry. I'm speaking neighboring countries, even as young republics as South Sudan, what they get out of the extractive industries, Madam Speaker, and neighboring in Tanzania, Uganda as well, Madam Speaker, is that we need to become better at this, how we manage this particular situation. Ensuring that, number one, you protect the local communities as is being explained in this particular bill. But I want to repeat for emphasis' sake, Madam Speaker, we still haven't thought of ways of attracting, Madam Speaker, investors who can come and put their resources, Madam Speaker, in this. There are other issues as well, Madam Speaker, that we need to address. I know, for example, that rare earths, there are parts of the countries of this country, either in Kwale, Homa Bay, Madam Speaker, Kericho, my own county, that have got significant deposits, for example, of rare earths, Madam Speaker, and they are untapped. There's no activity going on there. There are people with licenses, Madam Speaker, to explore. They have overstayed with those particular exploration licenses, Madam Speaker. We must address that particular need and ensure that we sort out whatever local issues exist. If their people are not comfortable, they are not assured of how they are going to be compensated or benefit, Madam Speaker, that's part of what we need to study in this particular bill so that our counties can earn better. It is out of growing industries such as this, Madam Speaker, that we will save ourselves the burden of what the revenue-raising measures that we have relied upon, which is purely on taxation, and that has led the country to the even current crisis that we find ourselves in. You borrow, and when you're no longer able to borrow, Madam Speaker, you come back to this few lots, almost 1.8 million earning population, to carry the burden of 50 million Kenyans, and that's part of the challenges that we are facing. It is only by growing such industries, Madam Speaker, that we shall be able, Madam Speaker, to actually ease the burden on other Kenyans. Therefore,
Senator Dirito John Kenya, what is your intervention? 1 minute, Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I'm struggling even to recognize my Majority Leader on that screen, because you can see even right now he's speaking, and he has stopped speaking. Madam Speaker, I don't want to blame my Majority Leader, but I want to say that the transmitting Madam Speaker, we have raised this issue of transmitting and our system of the Senate in the Budget and Appropriation Committee, time without a number. But our request has fallen on deaf ears. It is true, Madam Speaker, as we speak, they are struggling, working hard to try and help the situation. But, Madam Speaker, the system, I think it's not only in HDU, now it's in ICU, Madam Speaker. And the Constitution provides that we are supposed to be open, what we are discussing here. And right now, I can tell you, Madam Speaker, that the senator for Kericho is not being recognized by people in Kericho because the pictures are bad. You can't tell when I was coming and I was at the lounge. When the senator of Kericho, my Majority Leader, is speaking, what is appearing on the screen, Madam Speaker, it is the senator for Muranga, John Nyoto. That was what was appearing on the screen. So, Madam Speaker, I want to put this to the Budget and Appropriation Committee, that they should give this high house money, and particularly for that purpose, Madam Speaker, because that's a requirement of transparency, is the requirement of the Constitution, Madam Speaker. I don't want to waste more time, but Madam Speaker, I just wanted to help you because I heard you ordering the people who are in the system, who are controlling the systems. They are not the problem, Madam Speaker. The problem is the system itself. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Kinyua. I can see you are still speaking. There is a delayed transmission of the pictures while in actual fact you are seated. To avoid having such technical hitches, I hope the Secretariat will take it up and the clerk is instructed to check into that issue to ensure we have a transmission that meets the constitutional threshold of accountability and transmission of information and proceedings that are being carried out in Senate. Majority Leader, I think you can conclude your
I had concluded, Madam Speaker, and Senator Kinyua has done a good job. I was about to ask, I thought I voted for commissioners, Madam Speaker, to represent me and ensure that the systems work. But I understand the challenges they are facing, and we must put in concerted effort to ensure that we resolve this particular issue, Madam Speaker, because it's increasingly becoming embarrassing what happens in this House. Therefore, with those many remarks, I support, Madam Speaker, with amendments, deletion of that Section 28, and a more elaborate drafting of Section 35 of that particular bill. And there are the other general thoughts that I've shared about it. With those many remarks, Madam Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Thank you, Majority Leader. We can now have Senator Mungatana Danson Buya.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa nafasi hii kuongea na mimi kutoa mawazo yangu kuhusu mswada huu ambao unapitisha sheria ya kusema kwamba kila mtu ambaye anaenda kufanya uwekezaji katika sekta ya kutoa madini awe anahakikisha ya kwamba wananchi wa kawaida wa sehemu hiyo na wao pia wanapata nafasi ya kujiendeleza. Mama Spika, kitu cha kwanza ambacho ningependa kusema kuhusu sheria hii ni kwamba sielewi ni kwa nini inaongelea peke yake kuhusu kutolewa kwa sheria hii ikiangalia peke yake sehemu ya mafuta na gesi ambazo zinatolewa kutoka ardhini. Mimi ningependekeza ya kwamba hii sheria hata ile jina igeuzwe iwe ni sheria ambayo inahusika na wawekezaji wote ambao wanalima madini kutoka ardhini. Nasema hivi kwa sababu sheria hii ni nzuri, Mama Spika. Ukiangalia kule Tana River sahi, sehemu ya Chardende, sehemu ya Bangal, kuna madini ambayo yanatumika kwa kutengeneza cement, na madini haya yanaitwa gypsum. Yanatoka sehemu hiyo ya Tana River, na ikiwa wawekezaji, Mama Spika, wangekuwa wanafuata sheria hii kwa sasa, ingekuwa jambo ambalo linawafaidi sana.
Order, Senator Eddie, just resume your seat, Senator Mungatana.
Madam Speaker, I know you've partly advised, maybe not ruled on this matter, but I want to stand on this matter again, understanding order number 245. Madam Speaker, this is a very serious issue. What is going on in this House with regards to broadcasting? Madam Speaker, if you read Standing Order number 45, 2, it says that the broadcasting of the proceedings of the Senate shall comply with the rules set out in the 6th schedule of these standing orders. Madam Speaker, if you read Schedule 6, under television broadcasting, Madam Speaker, 3F says that the press and I'm sorry about that. If you read the entire 3, I don't want to read all of it because of time, Madam Speaker. It talks about the dignity that this broadcast comes with, Madam Speaker. And if you look at the tradition of this House, is that sometimes we retreat in the Senate lounge to be able to follow these proceedings. And when you are in this House, you have a feeling that anybody who is talking and you're listening and you're looking at the screen, you find as though somebody is drunk. It's not dignified. It's not honorary to the members of this House, Madam Speaker. And if now I'm imagining if you are if this broadcast is going on at our lounges, it looks even crazier. So, Madam Speaker, I wanted to invite you that sometimes technological problems do appear. Will you perhaps rule by request that perhaps then the system is just shut now, the recording can proceed for future references, but the system inside here and the other side is shut so that we can have a proper account of what we are following in the House, as well as proper account of what's happening in the lounges, Madam Speaker. Because otherwise, it is against Schedule 6, the 6th schedule, just an under dignity to senators who are contributing at any given point in time. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Senator. And indeed, I had noted that the transmission was not properly being done. As you can see now, it is delayed and it's reporting after the event. And I believe it is actually not meeting the standards that are set out under Standing Order 45 and the 6th schedule. It's Standing Order 45 and the 6th schedule of the standing orders. And as the Majority Leader also rightly noted, it could cause embarrassment to the Senate while the proceedings are still happening normally here and senators are diligently executing their tasks and addressing the motions that are before this House, and especially the current debate, which is focusing on a very important bill, an enactment of a bill in relation to local content, which definitely is an avenue to achieving some of the goals that even our nation has in terms of ensuring that the extractive minerals can be harnessed for the benefit of our nation. Those are important proceedings that need to be properly broadcasted. Now, the Budget and Appropriation Committee, as mentioned by Commissioner Senator Kenywa, we have been advised that they have a request to ensure that Senate has a system that properly broadcasts and meets the standards, also the constitutional standards of providing information to the public and ensuring that the public are able to follow what is happening at Senate. I would once again, in addition to what I have asked the Secretariat desk to do under the clerk, I would once again request the technical team under the Secretariat and through the clerk's office to ensure, if possible, immediate proper transmission of the proceedings that are happening to this House. I regret I'm not able to order for the closure of the broadcast. That would be drastic and wrong. So the transmission will continue, but we're asking the technical team to do all that is possible to ensure clarity in the broadcast and to ensure that senators appear in the state that they are at with clear, sharp focus on their image and with the clarity of what they are submitting. So technical team on clerk's desk, over to you. Please give support to Senate in the proceedings. We may proceed. Senator Mungatana. And the Budgets and Appropriation Committee, this is an urgent issue that we direct you to deal with immediate effect to avoid the challenges that the House is going through due to interfered proceedings by poor broadcasting. And in this era, digital era, we shouldn't have excuse. Kenya has enough experts and enough technical support, even equipments are available. There shouldn't be any excuse for not providing clear broadcast. What's your point of order, Senator Karungo Dangwa?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for your guidance to the House and to the Secretariat and the Clerk. But as a former broadcaster and somebody who understands how these things work, I think out there, to the people, there's no problem. Out there, whatever they are watching us say, there is no problem out there. They're only seeing a delayed version of what you're saying, but they can see you say whatever you're saying. The only problem is here in this House, the delay we are having here. And that's why I agree with Senator of Migori. Instead of us seeing the delayed version of us, they can shut these monitors, then we continue discussing without looking at whoever was speaking here. But outside there at homes, people are seeing us the way we are supposed to be seen. So they're actually wondering what we're discussing. Yeah, because they can see there is no problem at home. So if they can shut the screens, then we don't see the delayed version of us here, so that we can continue discussing.
Honorable Senator Karungo, I have already given a direction, and it's the chair who gives the direction of what happens in the House. And I have given a direction which I believe should be good enough to guide the proceedings. For the senators, I am equally concerned about the delayed transmission because it's a bit distracting when you are watching a person who is not on the floor and watching the previous speaker. But we will proceed on and request the Secretariat to see how they can correct that so that we continue to remain fully transparent even in the midst of the challenge. What's your point of order, Senator Kenya? Is it on the same protracted issue? Don't return the same because I've given direction.
Si kwa hiyo, Speaker. Langu tu ni unielekeze kwa sababu nimemsikiza Senator wa kutoka Tana River, Mungatana. Wakati anapokutaja anasema Mama Speaker. Sijui kama ni lugha inayofaa kwa sababu ni nzuri, jina mama ni neno la heshima na sina shaka pangu rohoni. Lakini akikuita Mama Speaker, sengine inakanganya wale wanaosikiza kutoka Laikipia, wanasema yule aliyeketi pale ni mama ya speaker. Kwa hivyo pengine mimi ningelitaka tu kumuuliza kwa heshima, najua jina mama ni jina la heshima, pengine anapokutaja akutaje B Speaker.
Kiswahili sanifu zaidi itakuwa B Speaker. Unaombwa sana Senator Mungatana kutumia hiyo Kiswahili sanifu. Asante.
Ni ile heshima kubwa ambayo niko nayo kama alivyosema, ndio nasema Mama Speaker, lakini nimekubali B Speaker. B Speaker. Sasa jambo la kwanza ni kwamba sheria hii ni nzuri sana kwa sababu inahusisha shida ambayo tunapata, na nilikuwa nimetoa mfano Tana River, sehemu ya Chardende tuna lima madini ambayo yanaitwa gypsum, na wale wawekezaji ambao wanatoa gypsum ambayo haswa hutumika kwa kutengeneza simiti, ni kwamba wanawacha shida kwa wananchi wa kawaida sehemu za Chardende, kuelekea mpaka sehemu ya kule Bangal. Bispika, sasa tunasema sehemu hii ya hii sheria hii ambayo inahusisha.
What's your point of order, Senator Gloria? Just resume your seat, Senator Mungatana.
Bispika, ningependa kumkosoa Senator Mungatana kwa sababu anataka kuongea Kiswahili. Jina ambalo linatumika hiyo ambayo anaita gypsum linaitwa jazi. Kwa hivyo ningependa kumkosoa. Asante.
Senator Danson Mungatana, ni kama umekosolewa na umeelezwa hiyo ni jazi. Endelea na Kiswahili sanifu kama unataka kutumia lugha ya Kiswahili.
Kwa hivyo Bispika, kule kwetu sehemu ya Chardende, Bispika, sheria hii ingetufaa sawasawa na sheria ambayo inazungumzia kuhusu kulima madini ya gesi ama madini ya mafuta. Kwa hivyo nimesema ya kwamba nimemkosoa seneta mwenzangu, na ningeomba wakati wa marekebisho ya hii sheria tugeuze na tuseme kwamba sheria hii iweze kugeuzwa jina ili ihusike kwa kulima madini ya aina yoyote, haswa madini ambayo yanatokana na ardhi. Kwa sababu vipengele vyote ambavyo vipo kwa sheria hii kama vingetekelezwa wakati sisi tunalima ile gypsum, wananchi wetu ama jasi, wananchi wetu wangepata manufaa zaidi. Bispika, mimi nimefurahi sana ukiangalia kipengele cha 22 kinasema kwamba kila mwekezaji ambaye atakuja kuweka mali yake ni lazima atengeneze mipango kamili kabla hajapewa leseni ya kwamba wananchi wa sehemu hiyo watafaidi namna gani. Na bwana Spika, Bispika, ukiangalia wale wanaolima gypsum ama wanaolima jasi sehemu ya Chardende na zingine za Tana River, hakuna manufaa ambao wananchi wa kawaida wanapata. Kwa hivyo kipengele hichi cha sheria hii mimi ninakiunga mkono sana, kwa sababu tungependa wawekezaji wote wawe na mipangilio kamili kabla hawajapewa leseni, na kaunti wawe na mipangilio kamili ambayo inasema kwamba mwananchi wa sehemu hiyo atafaidi na namna gani. Na Bispika, kipengele kingine ambacho kimenipendeza sana kuhusu sheria hii ni kwamba kipengele cha 26 kinasema lazima mwekezaji aweze kuweka mipangilio kamili ya kusema wananchi wa pale watapata kufundishwa namna ya kulima yale madini na kuongeza ujuzi kwa wananchi ambao wanaishi sehemu hiyo. Sahihi Bispika, watu wetu wote wa sehemu ambazo kuna madini ambayo yanalimwa hawajui, haswa hawana ujuzi wa kufanya hiyo kazi wao wenyewe. Ni watu wanatoka nje, wanakuja wanalima madini, watu wetu wanaambiwa tu chimbeni, hawafundishwi ujuzi kamili. Na kusema ukweli, yale madini yakiondoka pale, sisi tunabaki na mashimo peke yake. Hatubaki na ujuzi ambao unatakikana tubaki nao. Sheria hii pia Bispika, nikiwa ninaiunga mkono, inasema ya kwamba mtu yoyote ambaye ni mwekezaji ama analima madini ni lazima aweke katika kipengele cha 28 aweke mpangilio kamili ya kwamba ni watu wangapi ambao wataandikwa kazi katika matarajio yake. Yaani kwa kusema ukweli, sheria hii imesema na imelenga pale ambapo ndipo. Kwa sababu wananchi sasa, tukishapitisha hii sheria na tukishapitisha sheria na tuweke mabadiliko katika sheria hii, wananchi wetu haswa sehemu ambazo tunalima madini kama kwetu Tana River wangefaidi sana, kwa sababu saa hii watu wetu hawapati kitu. Wanaandikwa kazi ambao hazieleweki, hawafundishwi ujuzi, hakuna mipango ya mwananchi wa pale kupata manufaa yote. Na inakuwa tu tunabaki na mashimo ambayo mbuzi zetu, ng'ombe zetu zinaingia ndani ya mashimo hayo wakati wawekezaji wanaondoka. Speaker, pia katika sheria hii inasema kabisa kwamba imelalia sheria kuu ya Kenya, yani katiba ya Kenya, kuhusu mambo ya environment, ardhi, yani vile wananchi wanafaa watumie na wafaidi kutoka kwa mazingira yao. Speaker, vile sahihi tunatumiwa vibaya kule Tana River na wawekezaji ambao wanafanya kazi ya kulima madini, mimi ninaiunga mkono sana sheria hii. Speaker, mimi tena ningependa kusema ya kwamba Tana River sio hiyo gypsum ama jarsi peke yake ambayo inalimwa. Wakati mheshimiwa waziri aliyeondoka kutoka wizara ya madini alitembelea Tana River, mheshimiwa Salim Mvurya alitueleza kwamba Tana River kuna map ambayo imetengenezwa na serikali, na kwamba Tana River tuko na madini ya kutosha, lakini bado hawajapata wawekezaji. Na hii ni kuonyesha kwamba, Speaker, wakati wa mbeleni ambapo tunaenda, huko mbeleni kutakuja wawekezaji wa kutosha sehemu yetu ya Tana River. Na hawa wakija, tunataka sheria hii iwekwe. Hata wakati huo, Speaker, tunasema vipengele hivi ambavyo vinasema mwananchi wa kawaida lazima andikwe kazi, mwananchi wa kawaida lazima apewe shares, mwananchi wa kawaida lazima afundishwe ujuzi wa ile kazi ya kulima madini. Hivi vipengele lazima viwepo katika makubaliano kati ya mwekezaji na mwananchi wa pale Tana River. Nasema hivi kwa sababu katiba yetu ya Kenya na sheria hii imetafsiri maana ya ardhi ya wananchi katika sehemu ya katiba ya 62. Na Speaker, inasema kati ya kutafsiri ardhi ambayo inaitwa ni ardhi ya umma, madini yote yametafsiriwa kuwa ni ardhi ya umma. Hivi ni kusema ya kwamba hapa Kenya mwananchi yoyote ambaye ameenda na amepata madini sehemu, hata kama ni title deed uko nayo na ni yako, ukweli ni kwamba madini yale yanaitwa ni madini ya serikali, kwa sababu public land imetafsiriwa ama ardhi ya umma imetafsiriwa kusema madini yote ni ardhi ya mwananchi. Na Speaker, ukiangalia katika sheria hii ambayo tunaiongea katika kipengele hapa mbeleni, tukiwa tunaianza kabisa, inasema ya kwamba katiba, yani sheria hii imewekwa chini ya maagizo ama principles za katiba ya Kenya kuhusu ardhi ya umma ama public land. Kwa hivyo hizi madini ambazo zitapatikana sehemu yetu ya Tana River, ikipatikana sio madini, sio ardhi ya mtu ambaye anaweza kwenda kusema sasa tutaandikishana kwa sababu unalima madini hapa, hii ni ardhi yangu, niko na title, ama pengine hii ni sehemu ambayo ni ya ni ya baba yangu ama watu wetu wa zamani. Haiwezekani kusema namna hiyo. Hii ni kusema ya kwamba kama ni ardhi ya umma madini yale, basi lazima tuweke sheria ambazo zitatufaidi. Na kwa wakati huu kuna tetesi ya kwamba kule sehemu ya Kwale madini ya titanium wamechukua ya kutosha, wamelima ya kutosha, na migodi ya titanium kule Kwale sasa wawekezaji wanaifunga na wako katika safari ya kumaliza hizo sheria hiyo mapatano. Na tetezi ambayo iko ni kwamba sehemu sasa ya Tana River wamepata chini, katika kupekua wamepata kwamba chini sehemu zile za Kipini kunapatikana madini ya titanium. Na Speaker, madini ya titanium ni madini ambayo yako na value kubwa sana. Na ukweli ni kwamba wananchi wa Kipini mpaka sasa hawajahusishwa. Ingekuwa hii sheria ipo, ingekuwa lazima tuwe na mikutano ya wananchi, watu waitwe. Mimi Speaker, nilienda mkutano wa hadhara, na mkutano huo waziri wa zamani alikuwa pale, waziri Mheshimiwa Mvuria, waziri wa zamani wa mambo ya madini. Na mimi nakumbuka wananchi walizungumza kupitia MCA wao Abubakar, Mheshimiwa Abubakar, na alisema kabisa kwamba sisi wananchi wa sehemu hii ya Kipini mpaka tuelezwe vizuri kuhusu tetezi hizi kwamba kuna titanium. Manake ukiangalia Speaker, wananchi pale wanakaa kando ya bahari, na bahari ndio ambayo wanaitegemea kwa chakula cha kila siku na pia kwa biashara zao kujikidhi kimaisha. Sasa wana wasiwasi ya kwamba huu uchimbaji wa madini ukianza, hali ya mazingira inaweza kuharibiwa, alafu wao watakuwa wako wapi? Wawekezaji wale, mimi ninasema sahihi ya kwamba watoke Nairobi, watoke huko juu, watoke kwa maofisi ya mawaziri, waje kwa serikali ya county, waje kwa wananchi wa Tana River, waje waongee na wananchi wa Tana River wa sehemu ya Kipini, wawaelezee, kwa sababu tunataka kujua ukweli wa mambo. Na lazima kama sheria hii inavyosema kufanyike uchunguzi wa kutosha kwamba mazingira hayataharibiwa, ifike sehemu ya kwamba hayataweza kutumika tena, na wale watachimba kama walivyochimba kule Kwale, ile migodi ya titanium ikiisha wao wataondoka, wataenda. Sisi sehemu ya Kipini tutabaki na mashimo na shida, na pia hatutaweza tena kurudi kule kuvua samaki kwa sababu mazingira yatakuwa yameharibika. Kwa hivyo tunataka kama sheria hii inavyosema, tukiipitisha watu wahusishwe vikamilifu na watu waelezewe vikamilifu. Na mimi natumia nafasi hii ya Senate kuwaambia wawekezaji wa titanium, hatutaki waende huko kupitia maofisi ya serikali za juu wakiwa Nairobi. Washuke chini kwa wananchi, tufanye mikutano na wananchi, tuwaelimishe wananchi kwa sababu kila mtu anataka maendeleo, lakini hatutaki maendeleo ambayo yatatuumiza. Hatutaki tuje tuambiwe hii titanium ukija ukimaliza kuilima hautaweza tena kushika samaki sehemu hiyo. Mazingira yataharibika, hatutaweza tena kulima. Hii ndio wasiwasi ambao tuko nayo. Kwa hivyo mimi nimesimama kusema Bi Speaker ya kwamba sheria hii ya uchimbaji wa madini tunataka tuifanye ikuwe sheria ya kisawasawa na wananchi wetu wahusishwe kikamilifu. Miaka iliyopita watu walikuwa wanafanya mambo kiholela. Wanaenda kufanya mipango ambayo wananchi hawahusishwi. Miaka hii sasa na mfumo huu wa kisasa lazima wananchi wahusishwe kikamilifu. Kwa hivyo mimi Bi Speaker, mimi ninaunga mkono hii sheria na inafaa tuipitishe, lakini kabla hata hatujaipitisha, wale wawekezaji ambao wanataka kufanya kazi ya kutafuta madini chini ya ardhi, tafadhali wapitie hapa Senate waone mambo vile ambavyo sisi tunatarajia yatafanyika. Na katika makubaliano ama agreements wataandikishana na wananchi, mambo haya yawe pale bayana, watu wajue kuwa kumefanyika environmental assessment report, environmental impact report, tuwe tunajua wananchi itakuwa namna gani wakati madini haya yanaanza kulimwa sehemu hiyo. Kwa hivyo kwa hayo mengi machache, Bi Speaker, nashukuru kwa kunipa nafasi hii na ninaunga mkono sheria hii. Asante sana.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Kisang.
Thank you, Madam.
Senator Kisang, you're even standing before you are called.
Because I've seen it around. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity that you've given me to contribute to this particular bill. Madam Speaker, this bill actually is before our committee, where also Senator Mungatana is a member. So I believe Senator Mungatana, as we finalize on the amendments, we also look at including the title, because you've said the title needs also to change so that people don't just think that this is the extractive industry is only oil, cars, and petroleum products, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the bill actually seeks to provide a framework in the development of an adoption of local content through ownership, control, and financing of activities connected with the exploitation of cars, oil, and other extractive or hydrocarbon resources, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, one of the issues is the development of local economies. Secondly, Madam Speaker, is stimulation of industrial development within the communities, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think the Parliamentary Service Commission and our commissioners and the Secretariat needs to be serious, especially with this system. This thing came up sometimes last year. And we said, you know, I'm an IT expert, one of the good ones in the country. And we said there are so many solutions in this country that I was in Zambia about 2 months ago. And Zambian Parliament, they have a very good system done by the locals. When you start speaking, even your clock, even it's 20 minutes, it starts counting. Not where the Secretariat alone is, it is displayed there. So that as you speak, they don't have to put that light on. You'll be able to see yourself and see how you can summarize your issues. So I hope in this particular financial year, 2024-25, they are putting enough resources to do the solution. And the systems are not expensive. It's not that 200 million or 300 million. You can get a good system under 200 million, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this particular industry, It's unfortunate that the former CS for mining and blue economy has been transferred to another ministry, Madam Speaker, because in under 2 years, the CS and his team told us that they were able to map the country and identify where we have resources, where we have minerals in the country within a very short time. That is why they were able to contribute close to around 130 something, 140 something billion to the economy. And before that, it was less than 100 billion. So there were good plans. I hope Governor Joe, as he takes over, he needs to move in the same direction, encourage also investors to move to the sector so that we can contribute that 14 to 20% to the economy, to the GDP, Madam Speaker, because Kenya, we have a lot of resources. It's only that we have not taken time to explore and also encourage investors to invest in this particular sector, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as a country, we have, you've seen in the Kwale, Tana River, Taita Tapeta, there are so many minerals. You go to Elgeyo Marakwet County. My colleagues have talked about coal in Kakamega, in Migori. But at the level of exploitation, at the level of exploration, Madam Speaker, it is very low. It's our local people. I've even seen another one in Marsabit, Madam Speaker, where there is a fight almost between the Ethiopians and the people of Marsabit on the Kenyan side. We're fighting over some mid-cold exploration, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we need to map out, encourage investors to come up with equipment so that we have industries instead of just the local artisans exploiting these minerals, and we have lost many of them because they don't have good skills. Every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or a month, we are seeing people dying in Migori, they're dying in Kakamega, or even in Vika because they don't have the skills and they have not been assisted, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as a committee, we put in an advert outside there to the public. It's unfortunate that we received some memorandums, but not enough. Not most of the investors and even the locals where we are doing these explorations, Madam Speaker, most of them didn't come to the committee to give enough information to help us, Madam Speaker. But the amendments that we are proposing, I believe in the committee of the whole, Madam Speaker, we will be moving amendments to ensure that the concerns that are raised by members are taken into account, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, as a committee, I don't think we are not going to compromise, especially on local development of, employment of the locals. Madam Speaker, Kenyans have gone to school. We have graduates in almost all the fields, Madam Speaker. We have engineers, we have geologists, we have petroleum engineers, Madam Speaker. And, Madam Speaker, it is important when investors come in, we ensure that they respect the communities, they employ the communities. We just give them maybe the key specialized employment opportunities. Madam Speaker, like in Elgeyo Marakwet County, we have fluoride, a plasma company, Madam Speaker, where an investor was there for close to 30 years. After 30 years, the agreement lapsed. Now we have, at least through the Ministry of Mining, we have a new investor who is putting in close to 5 billion. And in that 5 billion, Madam Speaker, we have said majority of the employees should come from the community, or at least from Kenya, Madam Speaker, so that we don't encourage expertise from outside the country when we already have the local knowledge. We have skills, Madam Speaker. That is why it is good to encourage the investors when they come to the country. The first position that they need to give out to the communities is the head of HR, because the head of HR will know when they are doing interviews and ensure they vet properly and employ the locals and eventually also Kenyans, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, that's why we are saying where we don't have sufficient skills, the investor must and should transfer skills in terms of training by taking our people to our colleges or out of the country to acquire specialized skills, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I know there are roles that the county governments will play, and there are those roles that will be played by the national government, and there are those roles that will be played by the local communities, Madam Speaker. Of course, we know anything that is below, I think that's why people are buried 6 feet. Maybe after 6 feet, what goes below there, it's no longer yours. It's for the government, Madam Speaker, is the local communities where these resources are found. The national government must compensate the people. The county government should be able to give licenses without giving too many conditions, because we understand and know, Madam Speaker, some counties also frustrate investors because of corruption, Madam Speaker. And the national government should do its part also by ensuring that environmental impact assessments are done properly. And Senator Mugatana talked about something which is very important, Madam Speaker. After exploration, after the investor has gone away, most of them leave the areas the way they dug, Madam Speaker. So we need to ensure this law, we need to put a clause, Madam Speaker, to ensure the environment is restored back, if it is possible, as it was at the beginning. They need to find some soil elsewhere and restore. Otherwise, you have seen in some areas, because of rain, maybe too much rain and whatever, Madam Speaker, there are some dams that are created not because a dam was there. It is because there are people who came and did a quarry, like the quarry, the one in Mbakasi, Madam Speaker, and then there's water there when there rains. And then eventually it becomes some place for criminals, Madam Speaker, to do their own activities. So, Madam Speaker, we are saying national government must do its part, county government must do its portion, Madam Speaker, and also the local community should do their own part, Madam Speaker, and ensure those things are done. Madam Speaker, we have what we call the local content development committee, Madam Speaker. It is important for members to know this is a committee at the national level. It is not a committee at the community level. That is why we are putting requirements there for the chairperson, requirements for the members of the committee, and this is where we need people with skills, so that they are the ones to ensure they monitor these operators or the investors that they comply. They also give a plan. It's unfortunate, Madam Speaker, that the Ministry of Petroleum and Energy, especially petroleum, Madam Speaker, the people of Turkana are still waiting to benefit from Lokichar oil, Madam Speaker. Up to now, they have not released the field development plan for Lokichar so that they can start transporting and exporting the oil there, Madam Speaker. If we had this particular local content development committee, then they would have been put to task, Madam Speaker. But we don't have it now. That's why we're saying it is important that we have it in place. And then they report to Parliament regularly about what they are doing, Madam Speaker. So this is a very important committee that will be able to help both the communities, the investors, and also the national government, Madam Speaker. So it's important, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we have also talked about transfer of knowledge, transfer of skills. I know some members had an issue with Clause 28 because we are saying they need to employ from the community. Madam Speaker, if we don't put this thing in law, the investors will come and exploit our people. If we have the opportunity when we are doing the law, we need to tighten it. This will not discourage investors. The investor can come in and say, the CEO is mine, you put it in your agreement, and maybe the finance director. But the others, you can get from local. In fact, it will be cheaper for the investors by getting the locals. Madam Speaker, so that one is important. Madam Speaker, we have also talked about local content plans. Because, Madam Speaker, sometimes there are people who get licenses to explore. You are given a block, and then you take years before you do the development, Madam Speaker, maybe because of lack of resources. So we need to ensure that every year they give us a plan. What are they going to do? So that we don't just allocate a block to an investor and they sleep on it or speculate on that particular block, Madam Speaker. So this is important and it should be followed closely, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we have listened as a committee, and I believe my chair, when he's going to reply, we will note and ensure that what the concerns that members have raised will be taken into account, and we also encourage members that please go through the bill. If you have any suggested amendments, I believe we still have time. You can come up with amendments, we'll discuss, and the House will listen, and even as a committee, we'll listen and we'll also give you the proposals that the industry or the public came up with memorandums while we were doing public participation, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is a good bill. We are urging and requesting our members of this House to keenly read, contribute, and we pass it. We should not apport the bill the way the majority say this bill. This is the third time we are making an attempt to pass this law to help our people, to help the locals, Madam Speaker. This bill is not a bill to attract investors, but this is a bill that we are also trying to see how we can help the locals within where we have these particular minerals to also do business themselves. We encourage the banks, the financiers also to advance resources to our local business community so that they can do these particular businesses themselves, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I beg to support the bill and encourage ourselves that this is very important bill, Madam Speaker. We pass it so that our people can benefit as soon as yesterday, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Kisang. Senator Karungo Thangwa Paul.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity, for giving me this opportunity to also weigh in support of this bill for the introduction into the Senate, the local content bill. But Madam Speaker, you know, when you hear the word local content, the first thing that comes to your mind is entertainment, creation of content online. But it's good to tell the Gen Zs and everybody who is watching this, we are not talking about that in this particular bill. What we are saying is that when the resources are dug up, Kenyans must benefit from that, Madam Speaker. And the bill is just talking about community engagement and, of course, domestic value addition. Madam Speaker, I know we will have an opportunity to amend this bill because when I look at it, it has some unintended consequences, Madam Speaker. Because I believe, after reading the whole of this bill, is a bit restrictive. It has restrictive requirements that might reduce investment attractiveness, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I remember, because I'm in the Committee of Trade, we had visited the counties of Migori and Busia. And when we were in Busia, Madam Speaker, we were told, or some people are complaining there, that there could be some people who have invaded the counties of Busia and Migori in digging out or mining of gold, Madam Speaker. And then I asked them, how can they invade your areas and that you can see them? They say you don't see them because they are maybe coming from the neighboring countries. And they go underground, over 100 meters underground, Madam Speaker. And the people there are afraid maybe their gold is actually gone. You know, people enter into this country underground, 100 meters below the earth, to mine gold, and they come into our country. And I ask them, how do they do that? They say it's because the side of the neighboring country, they have better equipment,
they are well trained, and they know what they're doing. Yet here in Migori and Busia, people are using manual ways of digging 100 meters down the ground, and they're using manual ways of taking air all the way to 100 meters, Madam Speaker. So when we say that we are discouraging foreigners or we are discouraging investors, they may never have an opportunity to mine their golds or to mine their minerals or the gas or the oil, Madam Speaker. Because tell me, in this country, the whole country, who has the capacity? Who has the capacity, Madam Speaker, to drill oil in this country? If you say that you are not inviting investors who have got up-to-date equipment, state-of-the-art equipment, they have oil detectors, they have mineral detectors, probably we might end up having gold that is down the ground that is not assisting or helping any community, Madam Speaker. So I urge, as we look into this act, this bill, Madam Speaker, we look at everything that is being that is restrictive, so that we can help our people partner with foreign investors and bring this kind of business, this kind of mining business to this country. Nevertheless, Madam Speaker, the bill is looking to promote local participation and value addition, because not so many people know and understand what mining is. I know a couple of days ago, it was reported all over that was a red alert in Kiambu County when a trailer overturned and people stole some drums containing sodium cyanide, Madam Speaker. Whoever took, they had no idea what that thing is, because probably we have not been trained or educated on what is mining and what involves mining, Madam Speaker. What I'm trying to say is that when you promote local participation, we will be able to train people and make sure that they understand what resources that are under the earth or under their feet, so that when we partner with those people who will be bringing that kind of business or investment, they will be, of course, involved. Madam Speaker, the bill also establishes a local content development committee. And this development committee, the chairman will be appointed by the Minister of Mining and Blue Economy, Madam Speaker. And as we speak, we do not have any CS at the moment. We only have an acting CS, who is Musalia Mudavadi, Madam Speaker. So, and I believe the nominees will be thoroughly vetted for people to understand whether they understand what's the job ahead of them, Madam Speaker. I don't know, sometimes, and I was looking at the Constitution, Madam Speaker, to see why the Senate does not vet the CSs. And I found true, the Constitution says National Assembly, Madam Speaker. Because if we were to vet them, Madam Speaker, I have so many questions to some of those nominees, Madam Speaker, on the issue, and especially this issue of mining, Madam Speaker, because the nominee who has been nominated is Hassan Joho, who hails from Coast, Madam Speaker. And I have seen a video of him going round, him swearing over his life that he will never engage the President of the Republic of Kenya, Madam Speaker. And I was asking myself, if I was a committee member who vets such a character or such a person, the first question would be, how will you work with the President, and yet you say it over your life, and I have not seen him leave this country or this earth, so I know it is not his reincarnation. I know it is still the same person. The first question would be, you swore never to talk to the President. Do you still stand with that statement that you said, Madam Speaker? That is one question I would want to ask, because we want to have people who understand the mandate and the people they work with. Because you cannot be in the same cabinet with the President, yet you swore that you will never speak to him over your dead body. And I know you are alive, so that is one question I want to see whether the National Assembly will ask, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I know this bill is providing a preference for local companies, and that is a good thing. But as I said before, these local companies must have the ability. If they don't have ability, they should be allowed to partner with foreigners or other investors that have the ability, Madam Speaker. So if we say we reduce the investors by the name of foreigners, then we might be doing injustice to the local people. They will have, they will never enjoy the resources because the resources will always be under the ground, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the bill is promoting capacity building and knowledge transfer. You know, as I said before about the sodium cyanide that some people took advantage of when the truck rolled somewhere in Rironi in Kiambu, if there is no knowledge, people will never understand what they're dealing with. But such a tractor, if probably it overturned in a certain area where they do mining, I know nobody could have touched that, Madam Speaker. Nobody could even have come close to that trailer, Madam Speaker. So when we talk about knowledge transfer, it's not just about knowledge on what oil does. It's not about just knowledge of about what a certain mineral does when it is brought to the ground, Madam Speaker. But it's for us to understand the processes. If you'd want to do gold, what is required? If you want to mine, as it was called, gypsum, what is required? Otherwise, it is going to remain an issue that is only benefiting a few who got the information and they're using it to their own advantage, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the bill also provides that the county governments must be involved. This is the reason why I'm supporting this bill, Madam Speaker. Because if we do not involve the counties, and remember the resources belong to the counties. When you are doing the division of revenue here, Madam Speaker, and when you are giving grants to the counties, we have some monies that we give the counties from the resources that probably have emanated from their counties, Madam Speaker. I know Kiambu don't benefit much from these kind of resources, but probably they are there. They are down there. I know we have carbon, Madam Speaker. If you go to Larry, you see, we have, I'm looking for the word, Madam Speaker, that thing that you, carbonated, the carbonated drinks, that carbon that they require to have it, to have in it, Madam Speaker. What I'm trying to say is that maybe if we explore further, we might be having more minerals than what we have, Madam Speaker. And that's why I'm saying it is good for us to discuss this bill with an open mind, because if we continue having that excessive restriction, we might not have special skills being transferred to us, Madam Speaker. The experts might run away and leave us with doing what we have been doing all through. And as I conclude, Madam Speaker, public participation is paramount. We need to come up with better mechanism and, of course, transparency. We have to come with performance metrics, monitoring mechanisms, so that people can give feedback. When they see somebody has started excavating the ground looking for minerals, yet you don't know who that person is, you don't know when they got registered, you don't know who bought that land. Because, Madam Speaker, and it's good to say, some people who are well advanced, they invite those people who knows how to look for minerals. They go to counties. As we speak, maybe there are somewhere in the counties where these counties are not well developed. And they explore. Once they explore, they say, here, maybe you'll have this kind of mineral. Here, you'll have this kind of mineral. And then they buy that land before they announce there'll be minerals, Madam Speaker. So sometimes you find somebody has already bought. And I believe, and this is something that we need to check, Madam Speaker, all the land that is owned by British, Madam Speaker, in this country, all the land that is owned by United Kingdom in this country, We should check. Maybe there is something down there. That's why they chose that part, they chose another part, they chose another part, and they left bare land for us during those colonial times, Madam Speaker. So I think it's something that we need to look into. And I believe this bill, once it is passed and assented, Madam Speaker, we are going to make sure that people understand what is below their feet, what is below the earth, what is below their houses, Madam Speaker. So in that regard, Madam Speaker, I support and I'll be bringing some amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Kisang, I see you have an intervention. What's your intervention?
Yeah, Madam Speaker, I'm not used to this, Madam Speaker. But from what I can see around the House, Madam Speaker, it looks like we don't have. I'm standing order number 41, and it looks like we don't have quorum, Madam Speaker.
Okay. Clerk, you will confirm whether we have quorum. And while you do so, I want to request the Hansard to make sure that with respect to the interventions that were made on the broadcasting and the clarity of the broadcasting, the relevant standing order should be 245. So please make sure that is updated and not 45. Meantime, Clerk, you can confirm whether we have quorum. The House has no quorum, so I will ask Sergeant Attams to ring quorum bell for 10 minutes. Honorable Senators, having failed to attain quorum and the expiry of 10 minutes, the House stands adjourned pursuant to Standing Order 41-2A until Tuesday, 30th July 2024 at 2:30 p.m.